Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 190. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge in the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I was frightened for my life as we were talking about Batman, because I thought Sean was going to kill me with the mace. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know. I got a little passionate and spirited on this one, didn't I?
Oh, dude, you got really, you got into it, and it was just that energy, and you're like, yeah.
I love Batman. And this
really?
It's
hard to tell.
Yes. So this was an episode and I do want to do one of these in January on the Superman universe, because we haven't done these in a while. It'd be fun to do the same thing with the Superman universe. This episode's we take two issues. We take an issue of Batman, the most recent issue of Batman, and the most recent issue of Red Robin, and actually it's an issue back of Batman now because the new one came out this week, and the most recent issue of Red Robin, and have an in-depth discussion not just about those books but of Batwoman, of Batman, Robin, Red Robin, Nightwing, Alfred.
Bat universe.
Just the whole universe in general, how we're feeling about characters and their placements now. What are we liking? What are we hoping for the future? We agreed on a lot. There were things where for the future where we were kind of in different places. It was a fun discussion, though, because one thing that was consistent, Huntress was a character who we really had a feisty conversation about.
Yeah.
A lot of fun talking about these characters and how they all play into this growing universe. So it was a heavy, in-depth discussion. So hopefully you'll enjoy this one. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. You can hear us on Get Your Geek On Radio, getyourgeekonradio.com, an online radio station committed to making geek chic. And Jim, want to remind everyone that our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up Red Robin number 9 by Christopher Yost, art and cover by Marcus II, and Ray McCarthy. Jim, I don't even want to tell you the little blurb on this one, other than to say the Red Robin cover is amazingly cool. It's regularly $2.99, 40% off only $179. We're going to tell you this episode why Red Robin is so cool. The reason why is the blurb on this one is really spoiler-filled.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read the blurb off for the sake of our listeners. Just listen to this episode. If you're not reading Red Robin, we'll tell you why you should. Go over to DCBService.com and check out the amazing discount on that, because that's one of the things that I love is that these books are just coming out at a great discount. There's 2 issues of Batman and Robin listed that month as well.
That's kind of neat.
So that's where, again, with that 50% off, it's like buy one, get one free. Jim, coming in January, our next In-Stock Trades Rage of the Month, as chosen by friend of the show, Kent Hare, JLA Avengers, the trade paperback. Regularly $19.99, 47% off, only $10.59. I want to thank InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show with that. If you don't own it, please grab it, and we're going to be chatting about it in January with the same depth that we've been talking about Preacher. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twist, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
And we're joined by special guest this episode, Darrell Taylor. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the episode.
Holy caffeine!
Yeah.
Y'all got me to spend money I didn't want to spend because I listened to the show y'all did with Detective, and I stopped getting it, and then I was just going to get it in trade, and then y'all kept talking about it, and I wound up buying them.
Isn't it good, though? Did you read it?
I know. I felt so bad for since I knew it was coming for the sister.
Right.
Yeah.
For the twin sister, I felt so bad for her.
But doesn't it read? It's a gorgeous book, and it reads really well.
Yeah, it does. It does. It was, and then I did want to do the fist pump, but I was on a train, so I would have looked crazy if I did when Montoya finally got all the women that were kidnapped. When she said, "Who says I'm alone?" when they had the gun to her head, and they were, like, "You're not getting them out of here," and she was like, "Well, who said I'm alone?" And then they got I just want to do the fist pump, and I couldn't do it, but it just got me excited.
Well, let me go ahead and just introduce this segment. I'm going to keep all that portion of where we just started talking about Detective Comics, but we're joined by Darrell Taylor from DaFixer's Hideout, Comic Book Roadshow, and No Apologies. And Darrell, actually, welcome back to Raging Bullets. We've chatted about this once before. But we're going to be talking today about Batman 693 and Red Robin number 7. But along the way, we're going to have a casual chat about how we're feeling about the changes to the Bat universe, particularly Dick Grayson in the costume, Damian as Robin, Tim as Red Robin, and of course, the announcements about Bruce Wayne and what's going on with him and what our thoughts are on ideally what we'd like it to look like when Bruce returns. Guys, I want to kick off. Darrell, you're just talking about Batwoman and how you just started reading Batwoman. That's one of those books, we were just talking about it last week. I had no idea that book was going to excite me as much as it did. Now that how many issues did you pick up? What did you...
Well, the thing is, I got the first arc, and then I was like, you know what? DC is going to do a beautiful, oversized trade of this. I know they are, where the art is just going to look even better. So I said, let me just stop getting it, and then I'll just wait for it to come out in trade, and I'll get it in trade. You talked about it on the show. I went back, and I got the rest of the arc, because I got the end of that arc where she successfully took down the group, from putting out the poison.
Okay.
And then I stopped. And then you talked about those 2 issues, and I was like, all right, I went back and bought them.
The origin issues are great, though, aren't they?
Those are outstanding.
I loved it. It was just to see. I like how Greg Rucka did the timing on it. How you got a good sum of how her family life was so good that I can understand why she would be pissed off by what happened to her sister. Plus, I felt really bad when she had to give up, being at West Point.
Yeah.
But you know what? I loved that conversation she had with her father, which was he asked her what happened, and you see people that are going through when they have to tell their parents that they're gay. That's a really hard thing to do, and you already have to deal with the outside world, but it hurts the most if your family rejects you. And when she said, I had to tell the truth, I just loved the way her father was just like, I'm proud of you, and your mother would have been proud of you too.
And I like for Dad, too, because it was really a sense to me, she was sticking to the code of honor. This is something that obviously she got from Dad.
Exactly.
That was Mom. Part of his role, and that was something that I really liked about that moment, was seeing just her have that opportunity to bond with Dad on that level, and Dad be like, you know what, I raised her right. There's that, and you're right, that could have gone either way.
It could have, because it's funny, because in the Army backgrounds, I've heard stories, like I've watched stories on this, and you do teach a child when you're in the Army that there is a code of honor. You tell the truth, you stand up for what you believe in, you don't break the code. And if a child says, I'm gay, they kind of get ostracized a lot of times. And it's like, but you told me not to break the code. I'm telling you, I'm being honest about who I am. And it could have went either way. He could have rejected her. He could have totally rejected her. Guys. But he kept to that. He said, I raised you to be honest. I raised you with a code of honor. And that's what you did. And he accepted her for that. And I think that it goes back to, in the beginning arcs, how her father really supported her, even though he really doesn't want her doing this, being out there as Batwoman. I think a part of him doesn't want her to, but you can see now that bond that they have, why he's so supportive of her.
It is interesting. I was glad to see that the origin story waited, because it's interesting to get to know her now, read the origin. I'd like to go back and actually reread the first issues in this run.
Right.
To now, when the whole origin's done, I want to wait till the whole thing's finished, and like to go back and reread that, and maybe even some of her appearances from like things like 52 and stuff like that, and like Crime Bible, just to kind of see if my viewpoint of how all those events take place, now that I know her better, change. Because it really was this origin. I'm like, oh my gosh, she is super cool.
And I can see why her and Renee had the issues that they had when they were together, because, Renee had issues with coming out, which I understand those issues, but you can tell with the way Kate was raised that it just is. She just can't hide. Kate is just, this is who I am. This is, you have to accept all of who I am, or I can't be with you. And you understand it now, all the way back to 52, even when Renee was going through her alcohol problem and the way that she was acting with all those other women, you can tell that Kate could not be a part of that lifestyle.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you were reading it, because that was kind of the fun part of that discussion for when Jim and I were doing it, because it was one of those ones where we start getting a little feisty. Did you find yourself emotionally involved in that sequence as it was going on, where you started saying to yourself, like, either I'm taking one side or the other, or I'm having trouble choosing, or wherever you wound up? Did it pull you in as much as it did us, or? It
was, the thing is, I understood both sides, because Renee, I read all of Gotham Central, so I know what she went through also. So I understood, plus I know some people that are in the police force, and they're also in corrections, which is also like that too. Sure. It's not, it's a place where if you're really different like that, you will, there's a chance, you can get ostracized, and it's important to be a part of the group, because you need backup. I mean, you do need that camaraderie in those areas. So I understand why Renee couldn't just come out and be, who she is, because she really went through a hard time when it finally did come out. And at the same time, I understand where Kate was coming from just her whole background. She was raised as a child to always take responsibility and for who you are, and for the things that you do. And if you do them, and she is, Kate is a soldier. She's a brave person. She can be rash, all those things. But part of who she is being gay. She is gay.
It was It was funny. Jim and I, when we were having that debate on the last episode, I was thinking about it afterwards. And I thought the funny part in my head was, I'm like, you and I have had debates like that about real friends of ours in real life, where you and I have played devil's advocate on both sides, or where you and I have been those friends where we were advocates. We've been in both positions where we've had to be on both sides of the fence and things like that in real life between the two of us. I'm like, the funny part was that discussion you and I had was so natural, because we've been there before. Not for that situation, but for situations that were similarly emotionally involved, emotionally entangled. Right. And I was like, that is a testament to the writer, when they can pull you in so strongly that you are like so locked into these characters that you are intensely defending them and their positions and what they're thinking and what it'll really mean. Because we've got to remember, is any of this really happening to any of them? No. But yet you and I were debating it like they were.
I got upset. The part where I read where they had the ring, her mother's ring, and the new woman that her father was marrying, when it was her and I guess her two kids. And when the woman said something like, well, it's okay, I wouldn't have picked it out, I had a visceral reaction to that. Like, and then when the son was, talking bad about the ring, I was angry. I was like, part of me was in the voice in my head reading it was like, how can he marry a woman like this?
Yeah, you just wanted to lay the smack down.
I did.
I did feel like, I don't know how you guys read her, though. I felt like she was somebody who's always run pretty high society.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And yet, see, I definitely agree with you. Like, the guy, I was ticked at. And the girl he was with, I was ticked at her, too. Because they just came off as snooty. They came off as nose in the air, all that kind of stuff. I did feel like she was she was in a position where she's very used to probably jumping on the bandwagon with them. But yet I did get the feel that she loves him. And she was trying to downplay their comments to just kind of like not get into an argument. I don't know if you guys read it that way.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I got that part. I did. But part of me was just I liked the mother so much from just those scenes.
I did too.
That I was just overly, like, she was my mother. I was just overly protective. So just the thought of her saying anything. First of all, I didn't think he should have gave her that ring anyway. I really agree. He should have gave that to Kate.
It depends. See, it's interesting, and I agree. I agree with that. I would love to know more about the history of this ring.
Me too.
Was it given by his mother, his grandmother, or was it something they just gave to his wife? And then, because if he just gave it to his wife, because they said family heirloom. Mm-hmm. Now, typically, an engagement ring or a wedding ring is not a family heirloom yet, unless it has been handed for generations.
Right.
The one of the times I read it, I took it that's what the new wife was telling her friends to kind of justify the size of it and justify it's a family heirloom.
Right.
Where it really wasn't a family heirloom.
And see, if that's the case, my take on it's different now. My feelings on it's drastically different as far as whether or not Dad did the right thing.
That was...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the one read-through. Then when I read through it a second time, I was sitting there like, no, that is an actual... that was the ring that the dad's mom had.
That's how I took it.
That was the second read-through. So I'm reading it both ways because on the one hand, the new wife comes across as being all right because she's standing up and all that. But on the other one, it's kind of a little I don't know.
Here's where I'm going to defend the dad a little bit. Depending on the history of that ring, let's say it's not just the dad's mom, but then her mom or something like that, and the tradition in that family has been that, through generations, that ring has been the ring that the wife has worn, and he's trying to stick to that tradition. And then that would mean that eventually, if it didn't go to Kate, technically it would go to maybe Kate's kids, or it would, something like that. That it would be passed on through generations like that. I get I would love to know more about the history of the ring. And that's the funny part. If we were sitting there, and that's where I guess what I'm trying to say, we could get ourselves in this whole trap of having a huge discussion about this ring. But I guess what the real point of talking about any of this is, hats off to Ruka, because at each stage, when we're talking about the mom, we're all saying that Mom was darn cool. We're heavily invested in Mom because of the writing. We're invested into Kate. We're invested into Renee. We're really talking about this small scene. It's a relatively small scene with these hoity-toity people and the new fiance. But yet, we're really we've seen enough of them in that short sequence that we're making value judgments on all of them and defending possibilities for this new fiance, as far as saying, this could have been peer pressure, she could have been doing that, or, and did Dad do the right thing depending on this ring? We all want to know the story of the ring. Like, if we were actually there and friends of these people, we would be trying to find out what was going on.
Well, it's a different story than usual, how people, they get into the evil stepmother. It wasn't like that, because I remember from the 52 run, her mother pretty much gave all her money. She shared all her wealth with Kate and her father. That's not somebody who's evil. She pretty much let Kate, when she went through that period of time where she was just aimless, going, she really didn't know what to do. She was spending her mother's money. I mean, and her mother didn't, it wasn't any scenes where her mother was like, I'm cutting you off. I mean, and the mother and the father did stay together for a long time, so I can't even say that I disliked her for that. So that wasn't even the case. The father, he won me over when he supported her, when he found out that, she quit West Point. So he won me over. The only part I just disagree with, even if it was an heirloom on his side, I just think that because of what happened to the mother, he should have still gave that ring to Kate.
It's funny, when you said evil stepmother, it just triggered in my head that when that first time reading through, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, the stepmother, it's got to be a little snooty, got to be probably after the money and all that stuff. So even before I read anything, I had those just thoughts going through my head. And then so when I read it, that's why the first time I read it, I kind of read it negative towards the stepmom. Then when you go through the whole sequencing, you see everybody's all lovey-dovey, things are going pretty cool. And then the second read-through, that's when I was able to look at her a little bit more objectively.
My wife and I had a conversation 2 nights ago. It's a similar sort of thing going on with friends, where we were just kind of chit-chatting about it. I was viewing one conversation one way, very heavily, and I was angry about it. Now, after we talked about the conversation later on, I did a complete 180. I view the conversation the other way, and I see the other side of it. what's interesting about this is when you've got good, well-written comic dialogue, it does that. That's why it's fun to go back and reread a comic with, well-written sequences, because you can see different layers to them. You can view them from a different perspective, being that person looking objectively at them. This is where, a lot of times we talk about the price point of comics, and I'm not talking about the fact that it strains our budgets. I totally agree with that, and I understand, people are just like, geez, comics are so expensive now, it's really hard for my budget. But the value of being able to go back through a comic and read it again, and to be able to analyze it differently. And look at the discussion we're having right now. We're supposed to be kicking into Batman. We're still on this doggone ring and Batwoman. But I mean, the point of what I'm saying here is right now you talk about the value of that comic book. That is one issue where right now we, the three of us, are very heavily emotionally invested in this sequence of events, to the point where these characters matter. They're not throwaway. It's not something where we're like, when we're done reading the issue, we want to walk away from them. We really want to get at the core of them. We want to know them. We want to be able to analyze every aspect of them. And these are small characters.
Yeah.
The people that we're talking about, aside from Dad, the stepmom and these, especially these other two people,
I don't think they've ever been back in, or will be back in.
Oh.
and if they are, maybe hopefully as victims of a bus accident. But the two of them, I'm not talking about the stepmom. I'm not necessarily because the jury's still out on her. But the other two for me, cannon fodder in my eyes.
Yeah.
They're to me Joker victims.
It's Rucker. Rucker is the type where I think that's what I liked so much, because I really didn't care about Gotham Central, and then somebody kept saying, read the first trade.
Yeah.
I read the first trade. Rucker never does a black and white character. It is never an all evil or an all good character. That's what gets you. It's like he gives you layers of the character, and then when you start to like the character, like Bullock. Bullock could be a character where it's been written where he is the most evil and detestable character ever. You read Rucker's version of Bullock, he still does things that are bad. He actually was one of the people that pretty much deflected a lot of the crap that Montoya got when she came out.
Which you wouldn't expect from him.
No, he was the last person you would expect for him to do that.
But yet, there was never a point in time when they did reveal that I was like, Bullock's out of character.
Yeah.
It was handled in such a way where I'm like, he's still the same guy, but now we've seen another side of him. And that's a key to good writing as well. It's if you're going to try something a little bit different than people would expect from the character, to be able to write that in such a way where the character still feels natural, where you're just kind of like, oh, that's still him, but look at what we've just learned about him right now. And I think more than anything else, what we've learned about the importance of that partnership with Renee Montoya. This is someone that Bullock cares enough about to view something that he might have handled differently with anybody else in a way that was, he knows Renee Montoya. She's been there. She's got his back. Something that we know he respects. They have been through thick and thin together. She saw him through dark times. He's seen her through some tough times. And the two of them are so close that he's like, you know what? I got your back. And that was something that was a very well-written moment as far as how that came through, because we got to see him in a different light and to see him kind of go through that as well. That's great writing, because that's something we all wanted to see, how that reaction would play off. And that's why these characters matter. We got I don't know if did you read the Batman or Detective Annuals?
Which one? The ones that just came out?
Yeah.
I read the first one. The first one that came out, and I didn't read. I have it, but I just didn't get a chance to read the second one. I'm
not going to spoil anything about them at the moment, but they're the ones for anybody out there that hasn't picked them up. The most recent annuals were done by Fabian Nicieza.
Right.
And it's a two-parter leading into the Azrael series. The cool thing about those two annuals is they take characters such as Renee and Bullock. And I didn't know the annuals were going to do this, but they gave us some camera time to some things we as fans, they're the geeky things that we as fans want to see. Like now that Renee's the question and Harvey's back on the Gotham Police Force, can we see the two of them together and see what that looks like? And we got that moment. So I'm not going to spoil that because I don't know, Darrell, if you've read that yet or not. And it's, to anybody who hasn't read them, there's moments like that in these two annuals. They're things that we haven't seen yet. Post, even Face the Face. Where all this stuff happened 1 year later and all that stuff where, came in. We haven't seen some of these moments yet, and they did. They played them out. And it was great to see that in this story that was... It could have been just an Azrael vehicle. It wasn't. Right. It's truly a Batman and Detective Comics annual. Azrael's a character in it. And the story is all-encompassing to the Bat world. And that was a cool part
Revelations, he broke my heart with Renee and with Cyrus. I think that's his name. That's the Spectre now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Crispus
Allen.
That's Crispus, yeah. That just broke my heart, period. Just from when, what happened to him at the end of Gotham Central all the way to with Revelations, how all that went down. He pulled the heartstrings in that story.
As we're talking about the changing Batman world, not only have the changes happened as far as Detective Comics now featuring Batwoman and The Question, but the Bat books across the board have drastically changed. Mm-hmm. We have a new Batgirl. We have a new Robin. We have Red Robin now. There is no more Nightwing. Nightwing is now Batman. Alfred's status quo...
It's still Alfred.
It's still Alfred, but the relationship with Dick Grayson versus it being Bruce Wayne, he's playing a different role. He's helping Dick to compensate for some of the things that Bruce would do, and yet helping Dick also to modify his way of operating as Batman to his strengths. So it's the two of them are working, it's Team Batman with the two of them as far as really adapting what Dick Grayson's Batman is like, especially early on in the Winnick arcs, which I really enjoyed seeing the difference of the relationship between Dick Grayson and Alfred, because Alfred even acknowledges that the conversations between the two of them and the depth of them and the fact that Dick is showing active engagement in conversation with him and actually listening to him is something that's different for Alfred. He's not used to having a Batman where he can play in that role. I've loved this exploration, and I can't get enough of it, to the point where I've said multiple times on the show, I am a diehard Bruce Wayne fan since I'm a little kid. I want Bruce Wayne back. But on the same side of it, I'm glad, I'm anxious for when I heard that this Bruce Wayne series is kicking off in April. This thing's running for 6 issues. My understanding has been that there is going to then be another miniseries featuring the return of Batman afterwards. I'm personally hoping that that's another 6-issue miniseries, which means starting in April, we've got a whole other year of Dick Grayson stories as Batman, because I'm digging this. And I'm very torn as far as, and open-minded as far as what I want to see from the Batman universe after this. But guys, and Darrell, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Batman in general right now, in the Batman world? Before we kick into the actual issue, how are you liking this? What is grabbing you about this, with Dick Grayson being Batman now?
It's funny, because at the DaFixer's Hideout, it was about 5 or 6 of us at a time. It divided us, what happened with Batman. Like, me and Gabe from the show, me, Gabe, and Laurie, we still like Batman. When they made it, when Dick took over the mantle, Umar and Maat, they're like, if it's not Bruce Wayne, I really want no part of it. He's like, they're adamant that if Batman should be Bruce Wayne, and that's it. There's nobody else that could be Batman but Bruce Wayne. I read these stories. I'm a fan of Batman since I was getting Batman stories when Neil Adams was drawing it. So I remember Robin, all those stories. All of it's been a fan. And Umar comes from and Matt comes from that same time. They were getting comics before I was getting comics. So they have stacks of Batman stories all the way around. But I have loved how they brought Dick from being Nightwing into, and I was loving Nightwing by Peter Tomasi, to being Robin. I loved how they made the transition. It's his Batman. It's not him being, because Prodigal, it was more of him trying to be the Bruce Wayne Batman. This time, it's different.
Well, in Prodigal, you mentioned Prodigal. Prodigal, he always knew it was temporary.
Right.
Because by the time he took over in Prodigal, Bruce had returned. He'd already reclaimed the mantle from Jean Paul Valley. So he knew that, this was going to be temporary. At the time, because of the way Bruce left, they didn't know how temporary. So he was really taking over the mantle and recovering in that position. But it had an extremely different feel than this, because I never thought for a single second there was a possibility he would remain Batman. The interesting part about this is, even though there's that part of me, I'll go right on the table right now, I would love Dick to go back to being Nightwing after this, in a much more prominent role in the DC Universe. And I know we'll get into this as we go through our discussion as far as where we all feel. But there is that part of me, and this is where, again, a testament to the creative teams that are working on this character right now, there's that part of me that believes that Dick Grayson can and should remain Batman if there is no Bruce Wayne. And that's the point of this storyline to me right now, and where they're going with this direction, is to show us that if Bruce needs to be replaced, there is a man who can fill the shoes, make the role his own, and can take over that mission for his father, which is, I think, the interesting point about this whole thing, that he actually could make it work in his own way. I love that. I'm eating that up about this whole thing. If they had actually killed off Bruce, I would be a very satisfied Batman reader enjoying following Dick Grayson. Now, my personal preference is I knew Bruce wasn't dead, yet they've given me these moments of disbelief because Dick believes it. Right. Because the world at large believes it. This storytelling has pulled me into the fantasy that he is Batman right now and Bruce is gone. And I like that. It's fun. It's a great journey. And I want to keep going on it as long as they've got the stories they want to tell. I think all along there's been a framework with a logical conclusion of Bruce coming back. I don't know what the world's going to look like. Are we going to have more than one Batman? Are we going to have Bruce Knight Batman? Or is Bruce going to take some time off and let Dick go in? Is Dick going to go back to being Nightwing? Whatever that is, they've got a plan. My compliments here are, I like the plan. This is fun. I'm dying to see what's happening with Bruce. I'm glad it's going to be a miniseries, because that means while that miniseries is going on, we get to explore more of this. Yeah. So it's the best of both worlds for me. Something for me as a diehard Bruce fan, yet for me as the fan who's really enjoying seeing Gotham continue in his absence. And this is different. I remember reading Azrael as Batman. I read all of Night Quest. And I remember reading him as Batman, and to the point where I just wanted to see people beat the tar out of Jean Paul Valley. I grew to love him when he went into an Azrael solo series afterwards, which was amazing. That's a testament to Denny O'Neil that he then sold me on the character again. But by the time Night's End came, I was ready to jump into the book with a crowbar. This is different. I'm not. They can keep Dick Grayson as Batman as long as they want to, as far as for their framework. I'm incredibly satisfied and enjoying this. Yet I still am going to be getting my Bruce Wayne stories in these minis. I'm like, yes, everything. I get all that I want. It's cool.
Exactly. It's funny because now that we know Batman is coming back, we know Bruce Wayne is coming back. There was a point in time where everyone was saying the problem with Batman was you didn't get a firm grasp on who Bruce Wayne was. You just got more of who Batman was. Was Batman the Mask, or was Bruce Wayne the Mask, or was Batman the Mask? I like how they are showing you exactly what's different about Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne. And when the series starts again, when they bring him back, they're not just bringing him back and he's just going to get the suit and be Batman. They're putting Bruce Wayne through a lot of situations where you get to see him react to things as just Bruce Wayne.
It's funny that you touched on that, because as a diehard Batman fan, I'm with you. You're 100% correct. One of the things I like about Bruce is I don't think Bruce knows. Like, Dick Grayson clearly knows that he's Dick Grayson. Mm-hmm. I think that's why we as fans have watched him go from Robin to Nightwing to now Batman. We've never lost Dick Grayson and all that. We know who Dick Grayson is.
Yeah.
Dick Grayson is not the outfits that he puts on. He's Dick Grayson. Bruce Wayne, on the other hand, it's one of the reasons why we talked about on the show in one of our debates, Jim, the possibility of Bruce taking on a different role. And why I was so adamant that wouldn't work for me is, in my eyes, Bruce doesn't know who's Batman, who's the real Bruce Wayne, and who's... I think there's some amalgamation somewhere in between. We talk about those moments where we see Bruce with Alfred, That's when we see the real man. I'm not sure if it's Bruce Wayne, if it's Batman. I don't think you can put a label on who that guy is. That's the real person, though, in those moments. There's a mask of Bruce Wayne. There's a mask of Batman. There's some moments where he lets down both masks. It doesn't matter whether he's got a mask on or a mask off. Those are those few moments, and we see them every so often. I do think that makes Bruce Wayne's Batman incredibly interesting. Mm-hmm. What's fun in this exploration is we know who Dick Grayson is. We're seeing a very different portrayal of this. This is a man who's very comfortable with who he is as a person. Dick Grayson is not we've seen Dick Grayson grow more and more comfortable into his role as Batman, but it was never about, is Dick Grayson comfortable with who he is? I love that.
Right.
I love that we've done this conversation twice, and this is completely different than last time.
Here's the one thing that I really enjoy about doing this show is when you get going on these rants. I tell you, man, this is one of the things I wish this was a video podcast. Just seeing the excitement, it's going on on your face as you're going through, and you're getting just as passionate as I get sometimes, and your hands are flailing just like mine does sometimes. It's hysterical watching.
Well, this is what you're talking about. That when you're having a Superman discussion, you get into your deep rooted dun 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 all that. That's Batman for me. So I mean, this is my. It is interesting though. It isn't just Bruce, though. Dick Grayson, since my childhood, is just as important a character for me. So to see him have this opportunity here, this is not a new character for me in the role of Batman. This is Dick Grayson stepping up, the prodigal son, going back to the prodigal theme of that original story, getting this opportunity. Who else should it be? And I love that it's different. I think one of the reasons when we used to do debates about this and talk about it, why Tim Drake looks so good in that role is he is much closer to Bruce in way of operation as a detective and all that. Mm-hmm. But what makes Dick an interesting person to take over is Dick at this point in time is so well established. He so knows who he is that Dick Grayson can completely modify this role to fit him, because at this stage in his life, Dick Grayson is one of the more well-rounded heroes in the DC Universe. He has done it all. There is no other, if you're looking for a veteran, this is a veteran that has his whole life been a superhero. Dick Grayson is making Batman a superhero in a way that's very different than how Bruce does it. He's very much in the public eye. He's smiling. This is what Bruce Wayne was in the 70s for me. To see Dick Grayson doing this now and making it work today is, to me, I'm just like, wow, this actually works in today's continuity. To have an accessible Batman today in a way that they haven't changed the environment. It's still dark and gritty in Gotham, yet we've got a Batman that brings hope to the citizens of Gotham in a way that's very different than Bruce. Bruce brought an intimidation that scared the heck out of criminals. Mm-hmm. That brought hope to people because they knew there was this dark beast out there that was scaring the criminals away. Dick has shown a different way of operating as Batman that still has that intimidation for criminals, but yet people can feel some kind of connection to him. Like, people got to be reading the papers and be like, that Batman guy's smiling. He's working with the police.
Right.
We've got a partnership going here. Which it ultimately kicks up the stature of the police force in Gotham. Is going to bring hope to those police officers and bring a greater partnership with them. What is this world going to look like when Bruce returns because of the things that Dick Grayson has set in place? There is, whether Dick Grayson's Batman or not, whether he goes back to being Nightwing, whatever, Dick Grayson has now established some very different ways of Gotham reacting to Batman, different ways of Gotham operating that won't change because of this. He has made a major change to the Batman mythos in this role. And I like that. I want it to stick. I want to see Bruce to have to react to it when he comes back. And Bruce to have to mold and change and modify to fit into this world as well, because I think it will show growth of that character, which to me is interesting and compelling about Bruce coming back. Not that it's going to go back to the way it was before. Morrison said Gotham's going to be very different after this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jim, you're ready to say something. Go right ahead.
With me, the one thing I'm looking forward to is when Bruce comes back, and if he does actually put on the cape and call Commissioner Gordon. and him react. That's, for me, is the biggest thing I'm waiting to see, because I want to know exactly how he's going to deal with his, because Gordon will know immediately once he sees Bruce back.
He's been through this before with Bruce multiple times.
Remember the point in the Batman, one of the issues of Batman, I think the first one of the new run with Tony Daniel, he says in it, Dick says, can I take this evidence for further study? And Gordon says, Batman doesn't ask to take evidence.
But see, Gordon's been through this with him before. He was through this in Nightfall. He was, where Azrael took over. And then he had confrontations with Bruce afterwards. And then found out that in Prodigal, he faced Dick Grayson there and said, a little bit short. He was totally, by the time Prodigal hit, Gordon was had enough of multiple Batman. He wanted, that was somebody he trusted. Gordon put himself on the line trusting this guy. And Gordon had to take a look at that and go, hey, what's the deal here, folks? I need to know who you are. I thought I knew who you were. For years, I've trusted that you are the guy. That was the great thing about Nightfall and what's going on. And then No Man's Land, when Bruce, quote-unquote, looked like he abandoned Gotham. He didn't, but because Gordon doesn't know who the man is under the cowl, he had no idea this guy was off in Washington trying to do what he could for his city. Right. But then had to do a one-on-one during that war zone. Now, with Dick Grayson in there, he's realized we've got a different guy under the cowl. He had to know what was going on in Battle for the Cowl, as far as that there's people running around, who is who. He knows that clearly the guy who's operating right now is not the guy that was rumored, when Jason Todd was running around under the cape and cowl. So he's got to be like, okay, what's going on now? You're right. There's going to be a confrontation eventually, and that can wait. Yeah. But I'm waiting. That when it comes, I want to read it. I don't care if I got to wait 2 years for it. It's going to be great to see Bruce and Gordon finally have a heart-to-heart.
I think that, you had mentioned, in the other conversation we had about Batman, you mentioned that you think Gordon knows that it's Nightwing under this mask. And I'm thinking so, too, when I reread it again, and the way that Gordon is comfortable with letting him see evidence, telling him exactly what's going on, it makes me think that he does know that is Nightwing.
Well, think about how many years he's known Dick Grayson. He knew him as Robin for years. Watched him grow from a kid into a teen, to a young adult, into Nightwing's role. Gordon definitely knew that Robin became Nightwing. Mm-hmm. He's no dummy. He's been for years in the Force, so he has to know this character well enough to have gradually picked up clues, even if he outwardly, if you asked him, do you know who's under the cowl? He might not even be able to vocalize it if we were chatting with him, but he has to be, I agree with you on the comfort level. Whether he knows outwardly or subconsciously that it's Nightwing under there. There is too much familiarity at the moment for him not to know that it is somebody that he has a relationship with.
My main reason for thinking that he knows it's Nightwing is because you figured during the Battle for the Cowl, Gordon was dealing directly with Nightwing.
Oh, yeah.
And then Nightwing's now gone and there's a new Batman. Mm-hmm. He has to know that that's Nightwing. Now, whether he knows Nightwing is Robin, I'm saying yes because Gordon, is that good. Now, Gordon's a good cop. He's an observant cop. He probably knows that Nightwing was the original Robin grown up, and now he knows that Nightwing is now the current Batman.
I totally agree.
Yeah, you doing the math, you'd figure that out because he watched this guy grow. Mm-hmm. He had too many rooftop visits with Robin to not have realized that it's the same guy with just a different... Because the Nightwing mask isn't drastically different than the Robin mask. So, the outward appearance, you'd have to have a pretty rough idea. Okay, there's some similarities here with this guy. I mean, and knowing that there was a new Robin being brought in, because he knew that Jason Todd was a different kid.
Yeah, he liked this Robin better than he liked the Jason Todd Robin. I remember those stories when Jason Todd was the Robin. He didn't take to him too much.
Right. And then he knew when Tim Drake came in that obviously that was now a third Robin.
But he liked him.
Right. But I mean, that's Gordon. So Gordon knows that there's been a hierarchy going on.
Yeah.
I think the frustrating part for Gordon, I think, has been when he's wondered who's Batman.
Well, Gordon is such a good sense of character. It's funny because when it's a bad Batman, when you know it's going to end badly, it's when he doesn't like that particular vigilante. When he likes the vigilante, it pretty much is going to go a lot smoothly because he didn't like Azrael when he started. He had a sense about Azrael when he first put on that bat costume. He just kept saying something's weird about him. He did the same thing with Jason Todd as Robin. Something just wasn't right about him, but he had a good rapport with Tim when he put on the costume. I like how they show that Gordon can't be a cop for this many years without a Batman and not be a good sense of character.
Yeah, I agree. Guys, there's been multiple Batman titles in this whole thing. We kicked off about this a little bit more about Detective Comics. That's with Batwoman now. But there are 3 titles featuring Batman, at least as one of the main characters. There's Batman and Robin, there's Batman, and then there's Batman Streets of Gotham, which is more of a street-level look at how Batman affects his world and, brings in a lot of the characters from Batman's world, such as Huntress and things like that, and Man-Bat, and how they're all interacting with this new Batman. Do you guys have a favorite title? Because I'll tell you mine, just seeing as I'm asking the question. Batman and Robin, since these relaunches, I think because of the hype and the excitement and the creative team, I've really been into it because it was the exploration of, I was very into seeing what Dick Grayson and Damian were going to be like. So I'm really into that. It's a great book. I'm just enjoying it issue after issue. I loved in Batman, and that was my close second, the Judd Winnick exploration of the prelude to that, like from Battle for the Cowl to where he was in Batman and Robin. How did Dick Grayson adapt? We talked a lot about how this guy had to grow into the role, not grow into the role of Batman, how to modify the role, because Dick Grayson's already there. He's reached his period of growth. How can he operate the way that he does as Batman and yet still put over the mystique of Batman and make that work long-term for him? So this is something that he can take on as a life career path, because it's no longer I'm filling in for somebody. I need to make this mine. And that is where there's a distinction between Prodigal and this. So I loved that. That was my close second with that. And then Streets of Gotham third, because I want to see how the world reacts to him. This Tony Daniel arc, though, for me, has kicked things up a notch, where we're starting to get into his reaction to things like Black Mask, who has completely changed Gotham. And this is an arc where it's now running, for me personally, neck and neck with Batman and Robin. These are 2 books right now where I'm hard-pressed to figure out which one I like more. I'm liking the varied exploration between the 2, but they are contenders for me. Where are you guys at, though? Darrell, I'll throw it back at you. What is your favorite Batman book right now, and why is that the one? Has it been that way since this relaunch, or has it changed, or where have you been at?
Batman, I think, has got to be my number 1. I liked Winnick. My favorite run during that time was Under the Hood with Winnick, when that was going on, and he did the same great job of introducing you to pretty much how he just didn't give the mantle to Dick Grayson. He didn't even want him to follow, but how Dick kind of took it and made it his own and his thinking behind it. And then when Tony Daniel came in, it did it for me. Like, he really stepped up from, you could tell he really got a handle on it from his Battle of the Cow to Batman. I really love how he's showing how Gotham is looking right now. So that definitely is my number 1. And then after that, it's Batman and Robin. And then my third, I don't get Streets of Gotham in single issues. I'm going to get that in trade. So the next would have to be Batwoman. It would have to be Detective for me.
Jim, where are you at? Do you have a hierarchy? Like your top?
Well,
let's go with your top 3.
I do have a hierarchy. And now, are we talking Bat Family or Batman titles? Because if we're talking Bat Family,
I would say those to me, I tend to view the Bat Family titles. Okay. So I'll stick. Well,
see,
I'm gonna actually. Let me, because I wasn't thinking Bat Family was doing it. I would go Batman and Robin right now. I would go Batman, and I would have a tough time deciding between Red Robin and Detective Comics right now, as far as which one of those 2 fit the third spot. If you had asked me before this origin arc, I would have said Red Robin. This Batwoman origin's given that a run for its money, and that's no knocking the quality of Red Robin, which I've been loving. Those 2 are running neck and neck. The Bat books, and I'm incredibly pleased with all of the Bat books right now. So, but I mean, I can put it in a hierarchy like that, and I would say that one. I would still give maybe a slight edge to Red Robin, except after that debate about Batwoman and how invested we are emotionally in these characters. I'm gonna cop out and say right now I've got a tie going on for the third spot between Detective Comics and Red Robin. I cannot decide between the two right now. I'll just be honest. That's where I'm at.
Okay. For me, it's Red Robin is back in the top slot for me. This is the character Tim Drake is my friend, and I know him well, and I am seeing my friend come back, and it's awesome. And I've loved the build where at the end of his Robin run, where they broke him down, and then the beginning of this, the beginning of his Red Robin series, the Blackest Night series, you see this character go through this, and this just beautiful writing. I'm actually starting to get behind the art. It's not Freddie drawing Tim, which is Freddie's my favorite drawer, and he's my favorite artist for Tim Drake. Drawer. It's swept. Okay. Oh, God, I'm going to be hammered on that one. He's my favorite artist, sorry, for Tim Drake. He draws good. But, I'm now seeing that character, and I'm seeing just the rebirth of that character. And it's just a great story, and I'm absolutely loving it. And so he's once again back on the top of the Bat family. Right behind that is Batman. I'm just seeing Dick get into the role and become Batman has just really gotten me gung-ho about it. That Two-Face story arc, I loved that ending where it was him and Alfred kind of working a tag team deal, and then the current Tony Daniels stuff has just had me gung-ho, hoorah, hoorah. For the third spot, that's a toughie, because before with the first story arc of Detective Comics, I would have said Batman and Robin. Mm-hmm. Once we get now the origins of King, it moved it above Batman and Robin. So it's right now number 3 spot is Detective Comics, and I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3. Solid, set in lock and stone, and not say a tie. Even though the next issue of Batman and Robin I may read something. Oh, this is awesome. That may, those two titles are fighting for the number 3 spot very strongly. You're
adamantly right there. That very statement you made right there is where I am at in these Bat books right now. That's why I just said Batgirl. I'm loving. It's this whole universe right now. Streets of Gotham, I'm really enjoying. It's just fun. Like when a Batman book comes up, I immediately start tossing them up there in the upper. I pick a stack usually of about 10 books each week out of my box when it comes. And then through that stack, I start then sorting them out as far as ones. I like to read, I know some people like to read their favorite books last to kind of like build to that. I got to go to my ones I want to read first. And it's between like the Batman books, the Blackest Night stuff. If I get something from Gail Simone in there, I start making a short list of books that I really want to read. Like a Jonah Hex gets up there in that stack as well of books that I just really got to grab to. And these Batman books have just been so tremendous. Batgirl's another book I really love. Batgirl.
Oh yeah, big time.
So and
it's not in my top 3 just because of the competition is up against.
Gotham City Sirens is really good.
If I'm going to spread out continuing the numbering, 4 obviously went to Batman and Robin. Then 3 is Batgirl. I'm not 5. Sorry, I'm going backwards. 5 would be Batgirl, and then Sirens and Streets of Gotham, and then
I'm going to
Azrael after Batgirl, then Sirens, and then Streets of Gotham.
There's times where
that's got to be my hierarchy.
My top 5 Bat books, so I'm going to say this. There's times where issues of Sirens starts bumping up into my top 5 because there's issues of it where I'm just like having an absolute blast with those characters. So that's what you were saying as far as how that jumps around. That isn't this statement isn't the same from month to month. It's interesting to see the Bat books are just really enjoyable right now, and I'm glad they've spread them out. It's not all Batman. It's how this changing universe has affected the other characters that are in that universe as well.
Yeah, I want to see it stay like this. I want to see this spread out. When Bruce comes back, I really want to see these number of titles out there with Bruce in one of the spots, but not in every spot.
Well, and there has been previously. You think about it, some of these books replace things like Birds of Prey, for example, and Nightwing and Robin. These are books that were there in a different format. So when Morrison talks about how there's going to be a change, I'm assuming the titles are going to, a lot of the titles are going to change, maybe not all of them. There'll be some things that stick. I'm guessing that if Batwoman's going to be out of Detective Comics, for example, that we're going to get, there's got to be a Batwoman book. So, I mean, these are characters who are going to shift around, but I think we're going to see them in some capacity in other books.
Oh, she must stay in Detective.
I'd love to see that.
It's doing so well.
Yes.
It's working so well. Just leave her in Detective.
It's a great book. I would be curious to see. And for any of our listeners, this isn't something where I'm not saying for a negative, anything at an attack end. I would love to see if there's anybody listening to the show who is reading Detective Comics right now with Batwoman who wouldn't like to see her stay there. Like, if you're not reading it and you're like, I want to see Batman back there, well, okay, if you're not reading it and you're not, it's not your thing, I can see you saying you want Batman in there. But I'm saying somebody who's actually reading Detective Comics right now, who's been and reading her as Batwoman, that you're saying that we've got to put Bruce back in there. I don't, or Dick or whoever. To me, I agree with you 100%, Darrell. I just think it's working. It's a nice fit. I love
it's good to go.
I love the feel.
Sales are good too. I mean, the overall right now, Batman is even doing better than Superman, which was not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Superman usually does better, doesn't he?
Right. Yeah, he usually does. So it's Batman, and I do feel bad about the Superman books because I think that's good stuff too.
Oh yeah.
But the Batman stuff, if you look at the sales, the overall sales, it's getting more activity than any of the other books right now under Green Lantern, because nothing is beating Green Lantern right now.
I want to do a show like this about the Superman books, too. We're probably not going to get to it till, as we kick into January, because we've got the next couple weeks planned, Jim. But I definitely want to do something like this about the Superman books, because what Darrell just said is 100% correct. The Superman books are incredible right now. And honestly, they're in the same boat with the Bat books. And I'm only going to say this real quick because we're going to move back into the Batman. They're in the same boat for me with the Bat books in the sense that if I had to make a hierarchy of which ones I'm enjoying the most, that changes from month to month with me too.
Yeah.
In the same way, which is fun because that means they're books that are worth picking up to me. This is an expense for us, and to be able to get that engaging value out of those books as well is really great for me. And that's the way comics should be, though. Mm-hmm. It should be that, like, you have a tough time deciding your top list when you're picking up the books that you're getting. They should all be great, to the point where you're just like, wow, these are so fun. I'm having a tough time deciding what's my favorite. And, that list is going to be something that should be jumbled all over the place because you're just having so much fun. Whether you're picking up 5 books or you're picking up 25 books, it should be that feeling. And if it's not, then there's something wrong with your pull list because there's too many doggone good books right now to not be having this kind of struggle. It's what the point of this hobby.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
As I'm looking right now at Batman 693, and I'm looking at the cover, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about Tony Daniel's art. Like on the DC The Source right now, there's been some preview art of upcoming issues. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy seeing the different take that he has for each issue. He tries to do something eye-catching with a little bit of pop to it for the cover. This is a great one of not only of Batman, but just all of his rogues. And I love, I'm a huge Flash fan. I love the Flash. I love his rogues gallery. But growing up as a kid, Batman's rogues, from the 60s show straight on through to the cartoons, straight on through to the Batman the Animated Series that came years later. But I'm talking about the Filmation cartoons before we even got to that. I've always enjoyed just the variety of rogues that he has, how each one's got a unique character, trait to them, something that makes them unique and special. And then in the comics, there's so many more. We get to see everybody laid out. I love that Bruce Wayne, as the Hush Bruce Wayne, is one of the rogues that is out there. We've got Falcone. We've got, it's everybody that's there.
We got Jason.
The Mad Hatter, Penguin. People who we're not necessarily seeing at this moment are up there. Great shot of the Joker. And
one of the things I recently noticed is he's changing around the Batman logo that's on the cover. It still kind of has a classic Batman look to it, but it is just a little bit tweaked, a little bit different. It's not your traditional, bat symbol with the word Batman across it. It's, kind of, flared out a little bit. It's a little bit different than like your classic Batman logo.
We've had logos like this before on Batman. I think you're right. It's tweaked, but I mean, it is thematically.
Oh, it's a representative, but it is a little bit different. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they're not just going same old.
I guess going on what I'm saying, what I like about it is it seems to pull from a lot of different eras of the Batman logo, because they've had Batman logos where it's been in this type of position before, but you're right, it's skirted up a little bit, and that's something that thematically they've done in Batman. Whenever they've done major changes, they've tweaked the logo slightly, and sometimes they go a little bit more classic, sometimes they go a little more modern, and it's something that I like because it does get you in the mindset that you're getting something different. I wasn't disputing it was more so I was kind of like saying, wow, this is something that I've kind of always liked about Batman, is when they do that.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. I like the Dick Grayson Batman outfit, even because we're getting a little bit of a different representation of it depending on what book we're reading it in. But I like the change in the belt. I like the little tweaks. The gloves are a little bit shorter. Those little tweaks and things like that I'm liking. Are you guys finding? Here's something a question. We are seeing variations of it depending on what book you look at. And I'm not just talking about between Batman and Robin and this. We see him represented in like the Blackest Night Batman or something like that. It's slightly different. You know what I'm talking about with the gloves and the boots and things like that. Things are just slightly a little bit tweaked. Does that bother you guys at all? It hasn't me. I clearly enjoy that. But do you guys, the slight little variations that you're seeing, is that something that you guys are finding? Do you notice it? Does it bother you? Or are you just kind of enjoying the art representation of it? Where are you guys at on it?
It kind of fits the character. I mean, because Dick is still trying to adjust the suit to kind of fit him. So I can see him. I mean, he has all his money. I can see him doing different things to the suit, maybe changing it because of whatever mission that he thinks he's going to go on, to kind of be prepared. Maybe I need a shorter cape. I need something. I can understand little changes like that. So I expect it the way that he's written.
See, I get absolutely furious when I see that. And I just start yelling and screaming and like, Sensei smash!
Yeah, you can't even sell that anymore. nice try though.
No, actually, I do gotta share some sentiment that Darrell had with when I see him, some tweaks to it, I do think in my head, okay, he modified what he took, for depending on what he's doing. Like later in this issue, we see a more armored, version of the costume. That definitely was, he picked that because he knew he was going into a war zone.
Does artistic interpretation, I guess, let's take it outside of Batman real quick, because I just think it's an interesting question. Does artistic interpretation bother you at all when that happens? Like, there are times where you'll get some art variances, like where you'll have a certain art team on one arc, and then the next arc it's a different art team, and you're going to get little tweaks and variations and things like that because of that. Do you guys ever find that bothers you, or is it something that you just kind of take it as it's a different art team, we're taking a different approach, it's just their interpretation of it? Where are you guys at on that? I'm just kind of curious. Does that something that's ever where you've been like, ooh, I don't like that at all, or just kind of, or that was jarring to me?
I've had some art interpretations that I haven't liked as much as others, but I've never. I don't think I've really had a interpretation where I said, "Ooh, that's bad." And I think I'm more forgiving towards art because I am such a poor artist that I'm like, I feel I can't criticize someone's work because there's no way I could even do remotely as good as that. But there'll be stuff that I like more than other stuff that I won't like, and it's I don't know, it's. I give a lot of leeway for artistic interpretation, but there have been times when I've read different titles and different writers, different artists taking care of different characters. I'm like, ooh, I like that version of this character better, or I like that version of this character better. Prime example is Tim Drake, Tim Wayne. For me, Freddie Williams, I love how he draws him. When other people draw him, I compare them to Freddie. Okay. And they're not, I'm not going to say they're bad artists, but they're not as good as. And there's a couple of people who draw Wonder Woman I just absolutely love, and anybody else who draws her, you've got high standards to live up to because of some of the current art I've seen. A couple of the people who I've seen draw her,
like who?
Like
Aaron Lopresti.
Aaron Lopresti is off the top of my head.
Nicholas Scott.
Her
Blackest Night.
The Blackest Night, and even when she's made appearances in the Secret Six,
yeah.
So there's two prime examples. Let's see. Yeah.
What is your familiarity with the Perez version of?
See, not as familiar.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of the images because that's a classic. Quote. Yeah, I'll say classic.
I read that,
Woman,
so we're in a different place there.
That was my first Wonder Woman. I didn't know any Wonder Woman before Perez.
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
And you know what? That's actually a classic example, Sean, where I think he's a good artist. I like his work. But if you were to say which one do you like better, Lopresti or Perez, I'm going to go with Lopresti
because you're familiar with it.
I'm more familiar with that,
and that's your linchpin.
And I like how she's drawn. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yes. George Perez is a very talented artist, a beautiful. That's a great Diana. There's no way I can knock it, but I'm going to go the other way.
And I read Wonder Woman before the Perez run, but that was the key. There is I read the Perez run. I read when I say broken issues, it was an issue here, an issue there of Wonder Woman. Nothing where you would consider following it. So I don't have a baseline artist where I'm like, that's my Wonder Woman artist before Perez. That was the run where just what Darrell's saying, I read Wonder Woman in that run. I followed it all the way through. I got to see what the artist was doing, where the storyline was going. I got to get really entrenched into the supporting cast. So that becomes my baseline. I think that's true of anybody. Like, growing up as a kid, Neil Adams, Jim Aparo, or Aparo, and I'm probably butchering his last name because I'm going back to whatever it was from my childhood when I didn't hear any pronunciations of last names. But those were my Batman artists.
Yes.
So that interpretation of this character is, to me, when Grant Morrison first came on to Batman and we started to see, the Kuberts doing that kind of style. Again, it kind of nods back to that. I'm not saying that they were cookie cutter from that, but we were going back more to a 70s look for Batman. Mm-hmm. It was something I was eating up because I'm like, this is taking me back to my childhood, yet it fits. They were writing it in a way where it worked today with Talia coming in and the man-bats coming down, and we're seeing Bruce throw down and have adventures in the city and all that stuff. I'm like, this is my childhood again, but today, and it's working like it would on the big screen. And yeah, I am. You're right. I'm probably going to punch you at some point. not because I'm angry, because I'm excited. So you should be scared right now. But
just put down the mace, and I'll be happy.
That's right. There is no mace right now. It's like a microphone stand you need to worry about. But this is this is the way I should feel about Batman. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of I'm like, when they nail Batman, there is nothing in the world that beats that for me. No, and that's something right now where it's, ooh.
The Neil Adams Batman, like I got the trade, the Neil Adams special, where it was different stories when he was doing it.
Oh, did you get those hardcovers?
Yes, the look, Jim, you have to see the Neil Adams look, and you'll look at it and go, oh, so that's where Bagley and Tony Daniel, because I can see that in the way that they draw him, because he was sleeker. Bruce was he was skinnier. He was more athletic. After time went by, like in the 90s, they started to make him more muscular. But with Neil Adams, he always drew him as, that debonair, sleek action hero.
The books we're talking about every year they released 3 of them. There was Batman Illustrated by Neil Adams, Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. And it was really, they tried to capture all of his work with Batman, including covers. Mm-hmm. So it was the issues that he did the interiors on and the covers, and short stories and things like that and appearances. Then they just released the first volume, and it's going to be another multi-volume series of the DC Universe stories illustrated by Neil Adams. And that they've released Volume 1. I know Volume 2 is coming out in 2010. And I think that's going to be a yearly thing until they collect all those stories. The nice thing about those, not only are they being reprinted in hardcover on like a hard, high quality cardstock paper, they're also being recolored.
Beautiful.
But I mean, they're gorgeous books. So for people, if you read that and you're like, I have fond memories of it, I love those stories, I was on the fence about getting them because maybe I have those issues. The best example I can give you as far as why you might be interested in this, for those people that are huge Killing Joke fans, I've got the original first print Killing Joke. I've got a couple other prints of Killing Joke because there's something wrong with me. But then I bought the oversized hardcover where Brian Bolin recolored it and, kind of tweaked it a little bit. The Neil Adams ones are just as worth picking up if you are a fan of something like that, because it's great to be able to take that original Neil Adams work, look at it, compare it to what they did with the recoloring. It is gorgeous, spectacular stuff. If you've never read it, do yourself a favor and consider picking up those, especially if you're liking the stuff that Grant Morrison started doing early on when he took over. It really is thematically, Morrison pulls a ton from there. So if you were digging that, this Neil Adams stuff, you've got to grab. It's Neil Adams, Denny O'Neil doing the writing. It's stuff that I'm salivating right now just talking. I could do a whole podcast just on these 3 books. We may. Not now, but we may. That might be episode 200 now, Jim. Forget the live show. We're doing all Batman illustrated by Neil Adams. But no. But
I thought we were doing Whatnot of the Opera.
I don't know that 200's set in stone anymore. But this is, it really is something. If anybody was on the fence about getting it, I would recommend it to anybody who is enjoying Morrison's stuff when he first kicked off on his first part of his run. That is, it basically, that stuff's all a prelude to it.
Remember Man-Bat when he had to save Man-Bat for the 100th time? I mean, he started in Gotham, went all the way to India or something. You go anywhere in the Neil Adams story.
He was an adventurer, a true adventurer. Like when Batman was in that first Morrison story, you saw him traveling the world. That's where he encountered Ra's al Ghul, Talia. These stories are there. So if you're into good Batman adventure stories, this is it's gold. It's a gold. And it's hardcover. And
he was called the James Bond of DC, kind of. Yes. The way they called him back then.
Yeah. Don't hold back, Sean. How do you really feel?
You know what? I'll admit I kind of liked it. Anyway, back to Tony Daniel. We go into Gotham City and we're seeing him, Black Mask's false face group. And the interesting part is we've got a war going on here that I'm curious to see what the real story of is. Falcone has some kind of bead on Black Mask. I don't know what it is yet. The more I think about it, the more theories I have, and a lot of it hinges on who's actually Black Mask. This storyline is supposed to tell us who Black Mask is. Part of me wonders if it isn't doggone Falcone, but there's all kinds of possibilities who's under there. We talked when we get to actually talk about Black Mask, we'll talk about some of our theories on it. But that's another theory I'm throwing out there. But these two guys, seeing Dick, I almost want to call him Bruce, Dick and Damian fighting together against these masks, and to see Damian kind of grow into more of a partner in the sense that as Dick's talking to him, Damian's throwing out commentary on what Dick has told him. We're seeing them operate a little bit more as a squad now, that their time together has shown growth. I'm a big fan of that. This is not a relationship that we're still seeing as dysfunctional as it was early on. We're seeing it gradually become something that's working. They're not tried and true partners, and there's times where you want to take Damian aside and give him a little talking. I want to give him a little time. I want to give him a little superhero timeout. But
see, I want to get the switch and yell.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm with that.
Yeah.
Spare the rod, spoil the child. Let's be honest. Yeah. Now, the only problem with Damian is, you better be prepared for him to fight back.
Yeah.
Because that's a guy where I don't think he'd sit and just take the spanking, saying "Thank you, sir. May I have another?"
The double page of them. We're seeing story panels, but also you see the two of them on top of the rocks there. Dick in full action running mode, and you see him coming behind him. They look really good together there.
I want that poster.
Go ahead.
I want the poster of that. I just love that scene And you can tell that Tony Daniel draws him totally different than he would draw Bruce Wayne. You could just see the look. It's like he said, in the beginning of the Batman run with Winnick, when it came out that Alfred told him, "You're a showman. You know, you are a showman. That you make Batman what you are." And this is definitely that type of look.
He looks like an adventurer. There's an adventure aspect, that's who Dick Grayson is. Nightwing has always been a costumed adventurer. You get this guy throwing on, hang gliders and stuff like that and swooping. Peter Tomasi just nailed this character during his run. And to have him flow from that into this and then have him look like this right now, this is the guy Tomasi was writing as Batman. And that's really important to me. Damian's costume has really grown on me. I'm so glad it wasn't Tim's or some variation. It wasn't like the original costume. I'm glad that they did a tweak and they made it Damian's. That was something that, at first when I saw it, I got to admit I wasn't thrilled. Now I really like it.
Yeah. The only thing I would think about changing on Damian is the outside of the cape. I would make it black how Tim had it, because it's just or a gray, and then have the yellow on the interior, kind of like how Tim did it. Because I always liked that that means he could go into the shadows as well. When you got the bright yellow, you can never go into the shadows.
Damian's bad enough that he doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it.
No, I'm kidding.
He thinks that.
I'm totally kidding. Honestly, if there was one tweak I would put, that would be 2. The only catch is with the gray, the amount of gray in his outfit and how his outfit is, so slightly different. I wonder how the black dynamic would work with. I wonder if they didn't try that, because I wonder visually for us.
Right, and it's funny as I say that.
Color scheme wise, I'm saying I don't know if that would work.
As I say that, the other side of the coin just pops in my head that Damian wouldn't want that shadowy, because he would say, "I don't hide."
He does, though.
But I would see him say, his personal ego would say, that's what Drake had to do. I don't have to do that because I'm the best at what I do, kind of thing. So he would have the more flashy, more bam, this is, kind of thing. As I'm throwing that out there, I'm thinking that would be something Damian would say, no, this is...
That's a good justification for something that I really do think the issue is, though. If you look at his gray and the way that costume's set up, I really do think the issue is if you put black on the back of that cape and throw that with the outfit the way it is right now, I don't know that would work. I think it would be too dark.
You know what? You say that, and seeing him behind Batman, if that cape was black, it would kind of throw off the way it looks.
Because remember the pants that Tim had, Tim still had the green going on along with it. We've got a lot less green in this guy. It's all gray. So then I don't know that would work as well.
Yeah, you might be right on that.
And I do think that's the honest reason. I might be totally wrong on that, but from a color standpoint, looking at that, I'm like, that'd be kind of a reason to kind of avoid that. But as far as from a functional standpoint, I completely agree with you. So I love your justification of it, because in my mind, that's the way I'm going to see it now. That's the reason why it's yellow. It's got nothing to do with functional. It's his kid's ego. At Wayne Tower, the life of being... This is the reason why relationships are horrible if you are Batman. Because you're constantly on the go in the evening. You've got to maintain this social pretense of being the son of Bruce Wayne, or Bruce Wayne when you were Bruce Wayne. You wake up at a certain point in time. You've got to kind of try to get yourself together very quickly, and then you're off to make an appearance. But all the while, you're still analyzing the night before, the coming night, any news that's happened during the course of the day. You never stop. There is no downtime as Batman. I love seeing battle damage. I love seeing this on Bruce. It's something right now in Widening Gyre, to see the scarring on Bruce when he's with Silver St. Cloud, for example. It's something we see on Hush. We've seen it everywhere. Just where there was times where women will see his back and will see all that and will just be in awe of what this man has been through. To see it now on Dick, because there is no... when do you recover? When do you fully ever heal?
Yeah.
And that was something I always liked about Nightfall, was Bane was able to capitalize on that.
Oh, yeah.
And it is something that I like seeing now that it continues. And Alfred's talking about makeup, and Dick talking about acting the part and putting on this show, this pretense and this presentation to keep things going, because they have to keep an eye on Tommy Elliott. What is he up to? What is he doing with this fortune? If they let him go, if they give him an inch, he's not going to take a yard. He's going to take a few miles, and do something horrible. And honestly, what I'm more curious to see is he's already taking inches.
Yeah.
We don't see it. Elliott's got a plan. He is entirely too confident with how much he's being watched to not be up to something major. Part of me wondered for a while there, is he Black Mask? Is he the one on the phone? Because we've seen him now. When Black Mask was running outside, we saw him watching it. So I don't think I'm sure he's not the one under the mask. But I kept wondering if he was the guy on the phone. But then let's talk about that, because I'm keeping dancing around this. You guys had some interesting theories. Jim, you came up with an interesting theory as far as who you thought it might be based on, because I was assuming he was on the phone at first, but then you presented an interesting, I think it was you, presented an interesting commentary as far as that wasn't a telephone at all.
Yeah, when we see him dealing, where he's getting ready to go to the gala and he's getting all dressed up, he has a conversation where he's going back and forth, and you see the one balloon's kind of like squiggly, and the other one's a more clear, balloon dialogue. And first thought that popped in my head was that he was Schizo talking to himself. And then as soon as I think Schizo, the first name that always pops in my head is Harvey Dent. Yeah. Now I don't know if he is Harvey or if he is just someone who has the same situation where it's a multiple type of personality disorder. Because I never thought he was on the phone with anyone. Just looking at we're looking at him from behind.
Well, I think that's a huge clue.
Yeah, I don't see the telltale hand up to the head type stuff. So for me, I'm thinking it could be Harvey.
It is interesting as I'm taking a look on this. The dialogue that you're talking about, the checkered dialogue, is the entire time he's talking to Fright, it's in that checkered dialogue, which would technically be Two-Face mode. Now, when we go to what would technically be the conversation with the other personality, the only balloon that's not checkered is the one where it technically would be him talking to somebody else. Because he says, "You trusted me to wear the mask, why doubt me now?" So
that's
that would
what
be
I'm
the
reading,
one where you'd
and
say
I'm like, that's
is
a Harvey thing to say.
Right. So you have to wonder right now, whoa.
Yeah, now, here's the one thing and I think this is actually thrown in there to kind of throw us for a loop. On that same page where you see, Black Mask walk into the limo talking back and forth, he has the one scene where he's standing outside the galley saying, "I haven't failed yet." Then the next scene you see is somebody's talking to the mayor, then talks to Commissioner Gordon, talks to DA Spencer. And previously...
that was Bruce Wayne.
Right. And that's what I think, they did that to try to throw us off, making us think that that's Elliott is Black Mask, because they meshed the two together.
What if it's the mayor?
If the mayor is Black Mask?
Yeah. You can see how he says, "I haven't failed yet." And then in the next scene, the one under that, it shows the mayor, and he has this sinister smile on his face.
Wait, guys, Black Mask is there. This limo that he's getting into...
is taking him to the party.
Yeah,
right.
So he's at the party.
Now, who knows what face Black Mask...
It's not Mr. Mayor. Whoever's talking to the mayor right there is Black Mask. Okay. Whoever's talking to Gordon right here is Black Mask.
Now, that, to me, looks like Tommy Elliott, because he says...
Is it?
Enjoy, we have much to talk about later. Because you remember, Elliott is now getting invited to be part of the Gold Shield, which will be the mayor, commissioner, and D.A. Spencer, and Bruce Wayne.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's why I'm like, part of me thinks that maybe he is, but then I'm like, you know what? I don't know. It's one of those. Now, does Tommy have
Tommy Elliott
schizophrenic viewpoints?
I don't think so.
Could it be we now have hit Tommy and Hush?
Let me throw another curveball to you. We've been saying cell phone. Why does it have to be with the Bluetooth technology? Why do we have to see him physically holding something? Could we go back to, let's take the schizophrenia out of it. He's talking to somebody.
Yeah, and very easily could be that as well. My first read through was, the first thought that popped in my head was Schizo talking to himself. You know, but you say cell phone, it could be wireless. You know, he's got a couple shekels in his pocket. He can probably afford a Bluetooth. You know, so it wouldn't be completely far fetched to think that he doesn't have to have the hand to his ear. But it just, I don't know. For me, it's kind of, so if you go by what the page layout, I would say Tommy Elliott. But if I go by the schizophrenia, the first thought that always pops in my head is Harvey Dent. Now, we had the whole time when Harvey was driven out of Gotham, he was face-to-face with Black Mask. And Mask gave him the option, join me or leave. And Dent goes, hey, I'm going to take off. I've always wanted to travel. Or something like, I needed a break, to get away from it or something like that. But there was a definite conversation between Black Mask and Harvey Dent in the same room. So that's what throws me off from it being Harvey Dent. So that, kind of leads me, is it Tommy who's doing this? He's Black Mask as well. But the only side thing I have on Tommy is he's being constantly watched by the crew. So how is he getting away to do all this stuff?
But we saw him watching Black Mask.
Yeah.
When he was in prison there. There's more than one. I gotta believe there's more than one player involved in this.
Yeah,
and it's a fractured person because he's saying that he has to stay focused. I have to be myself, and then the person says, "Then you must exude calmness. I'll see that you do."
No, that's him talking to Fright. That's Fright.
Oh, that's Fright.
That's still that first page is all conversation with Fright.
Okay,
because he's talking. He's saying to Fright because Fright was saying, you knew when you hired me that I wasn't signing on to be another one of your yes men. So he's coming back saying, no, you're my devil's advocate. You aren't afraid to tell me what you really think. But I must stay focused this evening. I have to be myself. Then you must exude. That's Fright coming back to him at that point. Yeah. That's still clearly Fright at that point.
Now, here's another name that I really don't think it is, but could it be? Joker. Because Joker is MIA. Could this be Joker?
And Morrison was very tight-lipped on it. He said, well, when they asked him in an interview about everybody wants to see Joker come back, and Morrison was he said something like, that would be a character that would be important to have come back in the book, but he left it at that. He wouldn't go any further.
This dialogue here is interesting to me. You've been relying on your underlings too much. You trusted me to wear the mask. Why doubt me now? So that's clearly that is the point where we're no longer talking to Fright.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because now we are on the defensive, unlike our usual position of strength. Now, either that's a schizophrenic person or there is a conversation going on with another person.
Right.
So it depends on what is actually happening there at the moment. Whoever got out of the limo, though, is the person in the mask.
Remember, it was a story.
So this person's at the party.
Right, but there was a story where Joker was manipulating Harvey Dent with an earpiece. He had an earpiece in his ear, and he was manipulating. He was saying things to Harvey to get him to do things he wanted to do to prepare him, kind of like to prepare Batman or whatever for Joker to come. He didn't want Batman to know that he was still in play, and he used Harvey. It was like he bugged the coin. He had the coin saying things, going through his voice and saying things to Harvey, driving him even more crazy.
All right, let's take a look at who. All right, are we all saying here that and assuming that Black Mask is at the party at the moment?
Yes.
So if we turn the pages here, we're seeing somebody in this is at. Let's take a look at who some of the suspects are. Then we've got Hush, Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. Assuming that that's Hush. We've got Riddler, which my personal feeling is we can rule him out altogether.
Yeah, this one would not be looking at him. Whoever it is somebody attractive.
Falcone's there.
Yeah. And you have the woman looking, remember at the bottom with Gordon, this is a woman that's looking at that person, and she has a look
Spencer.
Of you are looking kind of attractive.
That's Manhunter. Kate Spencer. It's Commissioner D.A. Spencer. That's Kate Spencer, Manhunter.
Right, okay, right. But she's still looking at him in kind of
yeah.
I mean, like he's not a hideous looking for somebody she doesn't like.
I would imagine, that to me says it's not Falcone.
Right, it could be.
Because Mario Falcone previously has been considered to be on the straight edge, but that has changed, right? His overall view. Yeah. So they would not be
friendly.
Like Gordon's smiling at this person. They're not smiling at him favorably. This, to me, points directly at Hush.
And here's another thing that points directly. If you look at that very same picture, look at Oracle.
She doesn't look happy.
That's not a friendly look on Oracle's face, because Oracle would know that that's Hush.
Yep.
So this person that they're talking to, it sounds like they're talking to Tommy right now. Mm-hmm. Now, is Tommy, Black Mask, or is Tommy working with Black Mask?
You mean, did they ride there together and that's where the conversation's coming from? Is Black Mask in the limo that Tommy's getting out of?
Yeah, or I don't know. I
don't know. Or is there more than one?
That's a clue, what you just said, Jim, with Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, she's got this look on her face. That's why I think they're talking right there. The mayor, Gordon, and Spencer are all talking to Tommy. Now, does that mean Tommy is Black Mask?
Or Arkham.
I'm not 100% certain.
Or Arkham.
Yeah, or Arkham.
But would Kate Spencer look at Arkham like that?
Kate would look nice, but not, she's kind of got a hubba-hubba look on her face. I agree with you.
Well, but, okay, let's be honest. You're assuming that's a hubba-hubba look.
Okay, I'm assuming. But it kind of, but the way that he's drawing her face,
I'm
looks
just looking
like
at people they would look at favorably. I'm saying we can pretty much assume now this is not Falcone.
Right.
No.
Yeah. I think it's Tommy, but I think it's more of a red herring to make us think that Tommy is the Black Mask. I don't think Tommy is Black Mask. I don't know who exactly is.
That is throwing a lot their way.
I think that's our team, the creative team, threw that in there to kind of make us think that it is Tommy, and it's not going to be.
Look at the way Arkham carries himself. Guys, I'm going to say I think Arkham's a suspect. Look at the way Black Mask carries himself, and look at the way Arkham carries himself. How stoic he is, things like that. I'm not saying that I'm 100% convinced it's Arkham. I don't think Arkham's off the table.
Oh, no. Arkham is a little bit out there. So, yeah, he's not...
let me put it this way. I think Arkham, if we're going under the theory of how Gordon and the mayor are receiving him, because can you guys think of a reason why Falcone so far... Am I right on this? Falcone right now would not be viewed favorably by the police, by Gordon.
Agree.
Especially when Dick knows Batman, as Batman, he knows that there's something not quite... He explained how he went off the edge. Like he went crazy. He went crazy at one time.
Kate and Gordon are on a committee with Arkham to restructure security in Gotham. So there is a familiarity there with Arkham that you could say the same thing about with Bruce Wayne. Hush, as we're talking about this moment.
Right.
So I'm saying I think Arkham's on the table. I'm not saying that he's 100% there. Is there anybody else at the party that we're missing? I mean, there is a possibility that we haven't seen this person at the party either.
Right.
So it could be, the red herring there could honestly be. I don't think it's Riddler, right?
No, Kate Spencer is not looking at the Riddler. You know how she is about villains. Even if you reform, she's not going to look at him like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm thinking Arkham now just jumped up in the suspects.
Because I don't think even Riddler's return right there qualifies as schizophrenia. He doesn't have two personalities going on here, and he wasn't talking to himself. Are you guys...
And here's the thing.
I don't know that we're dealing with schizophrenia. That's the problem.
Right.
If we're dealing with schizophrenia, I don't see anyone at the party...
Well, I actually could see Arkham being a little schizophrenic.
Crazy?
Yeah. I think, he's not 100% normal. Let's be honest. And if we're looking at him as a possibility of being Black Mask, there's very easily a good chance he could be...
It would also explain why he went the way that he did to control the villains from Arkham.
Right.
And that means that Arkham initiated what actually happened there.
Yeah.
It's about control.
Right.
And I see him snap. Anybody that want to work with those criminals as much as it happened at Arkham, I'd be done with Arkham. I'm done. The first couple of times that place went crazy, blew up, I'd be running for the hills instead of trying to reform these crazy people. Arkham is he has, I don't know, I think Arkham, I can see him snapping, working with that many sociopaths, I can see him eventually just snapping.
And taking complete control of them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Something that he could never do the way that he did before. He has done that. So if it is Arkham, I'm not 100% sold on that, but I do think it's an interesting possibility. I would love to make a police wall of this. This is fun.
Yes,
This is great storytelling when you start getting into the point where you're like, ugh, I want to dig my teeth into who this could be. So right now I would say two major suspects at this party are Hush and Arkham.
You can't take either one off the table.
But you're right then, if it's Arkham, we don't know enough about him to know whether or not schizophrenia is on the table.
Exactly.
So that could, either he's talking to somebody else, and there is another player in this game, or he's talking to himself and he's got a few screws loose, which anybody in Gotham you could say is a little off their rocker. Hush isn't exactly all together.
Everybody's a little bit off their tier. And then,
wow. This is fun. I'm looking at this a totally different way.
Yeah. And this is only 2 issues in of Tony Daniels' run.
I know.
Yeah. But you got to remember, what the great thing about this is, it feels like it flows nicely over everything that we've seen before Tony Daniels was writing this. So it's great the way Tony Daniel, I keep adding an S onto his name, it's Tony Daniel. But everything that's come before Tony Daniel has written and drawn this particular story arc has led to this. From Battle for the Cowl, straight on through the stuff that was going on during the first arc. It's just things that we've seen that have been building in Gotham. We've seen this in the streets of Gotham, building there.
Yeah.
So this is really just engaging to me. I do love. What was it? Was it the last issue where Black Mask was wearing an outfit that made him look like he was out of? You guys seen Hellraiser?
That's what I thought of.
Like one of the Cenobites. Oh, the things we will show you.
That is, but who would be best? I'm thinking more Arkham. Now you got me thinking Arkham.
Yeah, I'm thinking Arkham now. Now I'm leaning towards him.
Because he could pick up, working with these criminals, working with Joker alone, Joker could manipulate you to go crazy in itself. Just him. And working with all these other criminals, you can pick up so many things working with these other criminals that I can see it could be Arkham. The
intrigue and mystery here is just, it's really, getting gritty to me. And this is, honestly, through this conversation, I'm like sitting here, we were talking about which book is bumping up. This month, all of a sudden, this book is jumping up.
The more we talk about the book, the more I'm like, all right.
Yeah. But, it's funny, if we were sitting here talking with Batman and Robin, too, and being able to really delve into a heavy conversation, this is what's great about being able to talk comics now, and being able to have forums to talk comics, and being able to just kind of engage in this kind of chat with comics. It's a lot different than growing up where, a lot of my friends weren't reading the same books. Even when we were trading them, we didn't have these kind of discussions about comics. So it's great to just really tackle these things like the literature that they are. This is what book clubs do. And comics are just as valid, so it's great to be able to just kind of sink this into the... Can we talk about Huntress and
oh my God.
Dick
Her
Grayson?
usage was just absolutely wonderful in this.
Hot.
Just the intro and the opening appearance of her, just, one... beautifully drawn, but I like the fact that she couldn't just have, she had to have a designer dress, because anything off the rack, anything, that wasn't high-end, hoorah, would draw attention. If she wants to blend into the crowd, she needs to have an outfit like that. She needs to look the part of high society.
Right.
And I thought that was just a nice, not only attention to detail, but the fact that they threw it out there as well, just to explain why she's that way.
I took that two ways, though. Either Alfred picked it up from her and is off the rack, because, would Alfred have had the time to get something that was specifically designed for her? And she was saying that it's drawing attention to me because it's off the rack, or the other way around. I could see it going either way. You could read that both ways, and it works.
Before her parents were killed.
Oh, yeah. What I'm saying,
she's used to this life.
Right. But what I'm saying is, her dialogue works on both levels.
Oh, yeah.
If Alfred had gotten this outfit, spent a lot of money on it, but still bought something from like a high-end clothing store versus it being something from a designer, that type of thing we're talking about. Her commentary works either way, because she could be making the comment saying, okay, I may look hot as can be, but, this is off the rack. This is drawing attention just because of that, or the other way around.
So I took it the other way around.
Because why would she say that?
Well, he's saying, I thought we weren't going to draw attention to ourselves. She's like, hey,
right.
If I was wearing anything off the rack, I would be drawing attention.
No,
I'm blending in with this.
You're changing the wording. Trust me, with this crowd, anything off the rack is drawing attention. She's saying we are drawing attention because this is off the rack. You're not reading that right.
See,
it says right here, I thought we weren't going to draw attentions to ourselves. So he's basically saying we're trying to blend in. She's saying we're already getting attention drawn to ourselves because this is off the rack.
I read it like Jim read it too, but now that
reread it, look at it right there.
Now that rereading it, I kind of get.
She's saying we've already got attention on ourselves right now. She's throwing it back at him. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very natural. It's great dialogue. But she's saying this is off the rack. That she's not knocking Alfred or anything. She already thanked him for buying the outfit. It's an expensive outfit, I'm sure. But think about it. How much time would Alfred put this together, right? Alfred probably went to one of the high-end shops, spent a big dime. But this isn't something that was specifically made for her. This is something that
it would have to be. This is not a fitted dress for her. You can.
And I'm talking like high-end designer, like a Saks or something like that.
Yeah,
we're getting.
They can tell when it's made for you and when it's something that you buy off the rack. We wouldn't know, but
she's saying they're already looking at us.
Right. I read it wrong. I read it the other way.
See, I see what you're saying, and
because he's saying I thought we weren't going to draw attention to ourselves, and she's saying it's already there.
Yeah, because she said, trust me. I thought we weren't going to draw attention to ourselves. And she's saying, trust me, with this crowd, anything off the rack is drawing attention.
And honestly, she should be saying attention's also being drawn because it's you. Because if you don't think right now with everything that happened with Bruce Wayne and all that craziness that his son is going to be drawing attention at the moment, people are in... I guarantee you, TMZ is following Bruce Wayne and his philanthropy, but also trying to keep an eye on Dick Grayson and what's going on there. Take a look at our society with the Kardashians and that type of stuff going on. They're keeping an eye on every family member.
And agree with Jim again, because now she's saying, I'm reading it now, is he's saying that I thought we weren't going to draw attention to ourselves, and she's saying that if I did buy this off the rack, we would have been drawing attention to ourselves.
She's not saying that, though.
I didn't buy it off the rack.
See, every time you guys say that, I'm just playing devil's advocate. Every time you guys have made that argument, you've changed the words of what she's saying to prove your point. You did it, and he had to do it now.
Oh, yeah.
Say it, justify it, saying it the way she's saying it.
Trust me, with this crowd, anything off the rack is drawing attention.
You can't... The second that you try to justify it, saying it the way she's saying it, it doesn't work. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, see,
I'm not arguing.
Here's the thing.
I want you to convince me, is what I'm saying.
I don't think I can.
I can't either. But the way they're throwing it out, I would have to hear them say it.
And I'm not arguing to being a pest. I'm being honest. I'm saying if you are seeing it in a way that I'm not, where you can justify it to me, saying it the way that she's saying it, I want to hear it. I'm not, because I love seeing things a different way. I can't. I'm having trouble seeing it the way you are. I want to get in your head and see it that way.
Because I'm seeing it as, you know what, you looking so hot that you are going to draw attention to us, and then her response is, the way I'm reading it, is that I'm not really drawing attention to us, but if I were wearing something that was,
but she's not saying that.
But it's. You know what I think it is? I think it's just, sometimes when you hang out with people and you get in you know them, they'll say one thing and you'll know exactly what they mean by it.
Yeah.
We're both basing our judgment on if she was our friend. And this is how...
I'm basing my judgment on what I know about her. Darrell's right. She's high society. So she's coming back and saying, with this crowd, it's off the rack. They're looking at me already.
Yeah, it's...
This is correct. You know what? The
and
funny part is,
I can't even argue the point with you because I agree, but I don't agree.
And we're obviously, you know what? We're at a stalemate because obviously you guys passionately believe what you do. And I'm having trouble convincing you my side of it, the same way you're having trouble convincing me. Because you guys are obviously, even with what I'm saying right now, I'm obviously heavily entrenched in my beliefs. You're obviously heavily entrenched in yours. It really, at this point, we should just say this really is a stalemate.
Yeah.
And accept it as such, and that we're both we've got our heels dug in because we're seeing it a certain way, and in our heads it works.
Yeah.
And move on. But I mean, this is clearly us at this party watching this whole thing, and we're assuming that. As this is continuing on, I love when we get into these kind of debates. This is like the Superman is a reluctant leader all over again. What is really going on with Helena's dress?
Well, I would be staring at Helena. I would.
I love her. She is a sexy character, but she's a sexy, powerful character. I love that she's smart. I love that she's this teacher who passionately believes in that. She's got this strong religious conviction. She is not a cookie-cutter character. Her relaunch has just continued because she's not the same character that she was on Earth 2. They relaunched her in such a way where she's just really interesting and intriguing. Her relationship with Nightwing in his series and in the mini-series that the two of them were featured in is really engaging. She's had a history with Bruce. She's one of those characters that kind of skirts the line because she has been willing to go farther than they have. Even now that she really kind of plays in their park because of her time in Birds of Prey, she's still the one that they all view as kind of the loose cannon that they've got to keep a handle on. Even Barbara, at this point, kind of wants to keep a little bit of a leash on her.
I got to give it to Gail Simone, though, because Gail, under her penmanship, Huntress has never... she's one of those women that she is beautiful and hot, but she even hooked up with a nerd because he interests her. Yeah. Remember that time she made that agreement to go out with the guy if he helped her get into some place they needed to get into?
And we all thought that was hot.
They made us all think, hey, we got a shot.
Yeah.
I thought that.
But one of the great things about her as a character is even she had a justification of what she was doing. She's one of those characters, and going back to Gail, one of the reasons why I always applaud her as a writer, one of the reasons why I jump for joy at her, she doesn't just write a character like it's their first day in the DC universe. She does her homework. Her Huntress felt like the same one that we were reading in the past in Nightwing, in those crossovers. I don't know how much she read. I don't know what homework she did. But she has a way of capturing the core of who these characters were before, and they never feel like it's their first day. She's doing it with Bane. She's done, these are characters who I care about because of my history with them. I like that these characters never feel that they're day one. This right now is a great example of a Huntress that feels like she went through the Nightwing series. She went through her own solo stuff. All of that came together, her own mini-series with The Question. That she's one of those characters. Cry for Justice, I believe it was.
Which one?
There was a Batman miniseries with her, and then there was one where she was in with The Question. They were partnering up, Huntress and Question. I'm talking about the Vic Sage Question, not Renee Montoya. She did partner up with Renee Montoya later on, but I'm going back before that. We actually got to see her with Vic Sage, and that was just a really cool series. So this is a character who, throughout her handling, Gail Simone did a great job with this. Amen and applause to Tony Daniel and editorial for this right here, because this is the same character. And the reason why that's so important to me, that kiss should have been awkward.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was right to do it. She had to cover for him. They were following. They got a little too close. They saw the meeting with Bruce Wayne and quote-unquote Arkham. We got to see Arkham put his foot down a little bit with this. I liked, and see this, I'm reading this differently now, because when he's saying, listen, I'd just like to see how my money is being invested. That's the problem, Mr. Wayne. This isn't an investment, it's a donation. The power in that moment with Arkham saying, you aren't a controlling party here, I am.
Yeah.
So, depending on how you read that, he has now pushed him out of the way because he doesn't want him to have control of Arkham or know the inner workings, that's what Hush wants. Hush wants to know, what information about Arkham can I get a hold of with its security system, how to get at the villains, all that kind of stuff. How can I utilize, because that's part of what Hush is doing in his role right now. Let me use some philanthropy to get involved in as many things on this restructuring of Gotham as I can, so I can utilize that later to my advantage. He's spending money to put himself in a position of power.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Arkham isn't buying. So that's an interesting bit, but the kiss between the two and how awkward it was.
One thing I love about that kiss is just they're both the reactions while they're doing it. He's got his eyes wide open going, huh? And she's actually, her one leg's cocked up, her eyes are closed. She's like kind of in the moment of the kiss.
Yeah, she's into that.
And totally, she did it specifically to cover, but you're right, there is something sultry about it. I love that he doesn't come out of Batman mode, though. He is still looking.
He's good, because I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
God, no.
Yeah, but that just shows that this is Dick Grayson, who is, we were talking about how he's a veteran. That's a veteran move.
Yeah, that's a veteran move.
We aren't veterans.
I'm yours.
We aren't veterans. Arkham and Bruce Wayne could be shooting each other in the background. I wouldn't know what's going on at that moment.
What happened?
They could both be dressing up. They could both be putting on clown suits and doing a dance in the background. I'd be oblivious to all of it.
Yeah.
But they could be kissing in the background. I wouldn't notice. But the moment where the two of them, after that has all gone down, and they have that quiet stare, then the heads go down, and both of them are, there's a little bit of shame, there's a little bit of awkwardness. Dick knows Barbara heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Huntress doesn't.
Man, yeah.
But
then when she finds out,
yeah.
She's like, oh, crap. Ah.
And you know that and I like how it kind of goes back to Gail Simone's run, because it took a lot to get Huntress and Barbara to they had a rift to mend to get them to be friends.
And Barbara knew about her relationship with Dick in that run.
And
she found out about that, and that became a part of the issue as well, where that was something that was awkward in the whole thing. And I loved that being brought into Birds of Prey. That's, again, talking about where you acknowledge things that happened in the past to then further the storytelling and create really cool moments. Those moments are then coming back here. This is where continuity works again. It doesn't matter if you've read those stories. Anybody reading this can pick it up and say, there is a history between these two, or there's something between them.
There's a spark.
And here's the ex who clearly isn't over things yet. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool to see that moment with her and Huntress. And yet, Barbara is a professional. Dick is a professional. They know there are bigger issues. This is not the time to deal with any of that. It's not worth it right now. You have to move on. Even though emotionally, I love that emotionally you can tell from Barbara's, the silent moment there, that she's seething or, there's something going on in that head. I would not want to be near her right now if she was holding any kind of nunchucks or anything, because I'm going to get caught in the crossfire.
Yeah. Dinah's going to have to fix this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again. Like she did the first time.
But we go to this Katrina now, and this is interesting because this is somebody who I like the option of, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, I like the option of a new Catwomanish style character, because Selina's story is so interesting because she skirts that line. But this is somebody who blatantly, not on the good guy side, with what she's done here. And I'm curious to see who she's working for. Or I would take that, at this point, one thing to notice, guys, Arkham's left.
Right.
So she could very well be talking to
Arkham right now.
Arkham.
Yeah.
Or, just as easily, do we see Hush at the party?
Last we saw, he was in the party.
Right, but I mean, we don't see him again after this as well. So this could easily be Hush. It could, technically it could be Riddler, because he would know that she's being followed.
Right.
So, really, the only three people that she could be talking to would be Arkham, Hush, or Riddler.
It's not Riddler.
I don't think Riddler in a million years. Boy, if it is Riddler, they've really snowed me.
Beautiful swerve, if it is.
Yeah, because I totally don't see that being the case. I'm still on the Hush theory or Arkham. Assuming... Okay, are any of you guys thinking Falcone?
No.
No.
Not at all.
I'm not either. Although that would be...
she's even though she is Falcone family, she's really anti-Falcone. She was trying to sneak out, I think it was last issue, and that's where we first saw her with the costume, and she's like, oh, yeah, sure, Uncle, I'll stay in. And it was like, so there was something between them. Well, not a positive dealings.
We know, how has Black Mask been able to get the one-up on the Falcone family? We know this now.
Yeah, she's working with
It's
Black
Katrina.
Mask.
Yeah, definitely.
It's No, I'm saying duh to me. Because I'm putting that. I haven't been thinking who the inside person was now until I'm looking at this. I'm literally just working this through in my head right now. There's probably people listening saying, "Duh, guys." Yeah, I think I've been so focused on who Black Mask is, I haven't been thinking about again how this is happening. So now we know that. Mm-hmm. This is really cool.
Yeah, a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, and here's a funny thing: as we're sitting here talking, what's rule number one in any investigation? Who benefits from it? So with all the stuff with Black Mask, who benefits the most from it? Tommy.
Yeah.
So that's investigation 101. Who benefits from the criminal action? Who benefits from the murder? Who benefits from these type of all the chaos and anarchy that Black Mask has been doing? Who benefits from it?
Well, also Arkham, if Arkham's plan is to be utilizing the villains to some other purpose. To change Gotham to his... Because if you think about it, Arkham Asylum has now been rebuilt to Arkham's specifications. Mm-hmm. So if you're saying whose benefits, Arkham is benefiting quite a bit. The whole security landscape of Gotham is changing, and Arkham is a part of that. He benefits as well.
Okay.
I'm not saying that to dispute what you're saying.
No.
You're 100% correct. Hush is a suspect. Amen. We're on the same page.
You know what?
Arkham is a suspect as well. This benefits him.
It would make so much sense. It does fit that Arkham would do this because it would make sense that he would want the original Arkham to be blown up so that he could, in a way, rebuild it. And it looks like he's getting all this money to do it in a different way. So it does make sense that it would be Arkham. But he might not even know that it's him. It might be that different persona.
Or is it the two of them together and they're swerving us?
Yeah.
Could it be both? Because they do both benefit. So that is another option on the table for me. I'm not entirely convinced. Like, did they know they were being observed? And was that conversation a ploy as well? I don't know. That's a third possibility there.
Wow.
Or we're all being completely swerved and it's somebody else. But I'm loving trying to wrap my head around. It's a cool mystery.
Yeah, it is.
Riddler. Let's talk about Riddler in general. I loved the moments with Riddler and Hush because of the fact that Hush knows that deep down Riddler knows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering, with the explosion right now and with Riddler seeming to get himself back, does Riddler now know that Bruce Wayne is Batman again? Because that was something that he hasn't known since Hush. Since he kind of snapped there.
I'm wondering if they just used whatever thing that they've been using to make people... Remember how they made the woman who was a school teacher turn into a criminal and rob that bank? I'm wondering if they used that on him to make him go bad, and he's not really, really bad again. They just used that technology.
Wouldn't that have affected Huntress, though? Because she was there as well?
We don't know what happened at that explosion, though.
The bomb, they were both caught in the same blast in the same spot. Mm-hmm. You see, he's right next to her. So unless there was something else done to him, which, going on your theory, because maybe there is something else that was done to him that we don't know about.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm still taking it that it's the explosion, but you're right. There might be another layer to this where we don't know something yet.
Yeah, I took it the explosion, kind of the concussion to his head is what the trauma to the head is what snapped him back.
But there is a possibility, maybe there's something we don't know about.
Yeah,
him.
And if they were to throw that out there, I'd be like, cool. That would be a nice little add-on to the thing. If not, I'm happy with the explanation that it's just the explosion itself.
He's an interesting wild card.
Yeah,
because where will he fall in all this?
Yeah, it's funny. When I first read this, I was a little bit kind of miffed because I kind of liked the Riddler, the way they were playing him.
I did too.
But now I'm like thinking this could get interesting. And it's one of those. I'm like, okay, yeah, because I've never really seen a bad guy Riddler story. I don't think I've ever really read one. In the comics.
Well, it also is he going to utilize? You mentioned this before. Is he going to utilize the position that he's kind of crafted here? Because he has gotten himself into a position of trust at this point.
Yeah,
of sorts.
Yeah.
It's tentative still, but he has proven himself more than once, because this has been going on with him for quite a while. Mm-hmm. So is he going to utilize that to his... It'd be almost silly not to, because with his MO and the way he operates. So is he going to be a free agent utilizing this for himself, or utilizing this to work with other people to his own advantage? I don't know. I don't see him outwardly letting people know that he's back yet. I see him playing a little game with all of this.
Yeah, because
and laying his own clues.
That would be the ultimate game, is he's a villain again, and nobody knows it. He's pulling off crimes, and nobody knows it's him.
Mm-hmm.
He was, well, they kept, when he came back and they kind of used him in Hush, they kept saying that he, as a detective, he is almost as smart as Bruce Wayne, and as in being a detective. He's almost as good as a detective as Bruce Wayne, but the only thing that always messed him up was his psychosis of always having to leave a riddle, which gave a clue to what he was doing.
Enjoy. We have much to talk about later. See, I don't see Riddler saying that.
Yeah.
I see both Hush and Arkham having reasons to say that to both of them, because I don't see Riddler saying to them, "Enjoy." I think we have much to talk about later. So that dialogue right there rules out Riddler to me.
Yeah.
As far as them looking at him, I see them having a friendly enough relationship with him now. Although, Jim, you make an interesting point about her and her sense of forgiveness. But remember, she is in Kate Spencer role, so maybe in that role she's not going to present herself the way Manhunter would. So I could see that maybe being a smile to Riddler, but I don't see that conversation happening with Riddler.
No.
So I'm pretty convinced it's not him. I do love Huntress and Barbara working together again. You know, we're back in business mode now. We're going to do this. I do think Barbara's smart enough that she understands that Huntress had to do what she did. It's just awkward.
Yeah.
You know, it's, oof. And then we get to see Dick and Barbara being all professional there, talking about plug in the police radio, Bullock's riled up about something. We got to know. I love that, though. They never stop.
Well, sometimes you just got to look past the emotional and, get to business. It's time, Now,
as a married man, sometimes you like to be when your wife is mad at you, it's better to be in a public forum. But when you get home, you're going to get it. If you did the wrong thing, you're going to get it when you get home.
Dude, if Oracle was my wife, I would never do anything, and I would never consider doing anything. How could you not think she would find out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't playing video games when I was supposed to be working on the house.
No, she knows everything.
I checked in the computer. I know what time you clocked in. You clocked in on your game.
Talk about a crazy marriage that would be. I would be so paranoid. I would check. She got so many gadgets and gizmos. I think there would be cameras everywhere. It would be she would be. I love Oracle as a character. She'd be the scariest woman in the world to be married to.
I'd never.
You could never be a guy.
I would never.
Like in Dick Grayson's case, he could make it work because he has no time to be a guy.
Right. He's also Dick Grayson.
Yeah. But he has no time
he's the king of smooth. Let's be honest here. But he can handle it.
He has no time
We are mere mortal men.
Right.
He is,
You've got a good point.
Yeah, so he could pull it off.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
Dick Grayson can never be a guy like we... Well, yeah, you're right. He can get away with certain things that we can't. Yeah. I love seeing Gordon with this Batman. I love how, as Dick has grown in this role, how he looks more and more like Bruce in the cowl. Like there is, because Dick's older now. He's more mature. He looks like I don't want to say a young Bruce, but he does look like he looks like Batman. At no point in time, I feel like this is Batman right now. When I'm seeing these two working together, the conversation, Bullock being there, this feels very good to me. It feels very Batman.
Let me ask you all a question. Because I'll throw myself under the bus. I do this sometimes, well, usually all the time. Whenever I'm reading his dialogue in Batman mode, I do the Batman voice. And I'll say it out loud as I'm reading sometimes. But if not in my head, I hear that, from the movie, the Batman voice.
Now, here's the funny part. Yes. I'll actually be honest with you. Oh, go ahead, Darrell. You go ahead and answer yours first.
I do it. I thought I was the only one. Because I hear the music, and that when he suits up and he gets ready to, go do what he does, I do hear the music. It's all like, I get all the Batman stuff from Batman Begins to Dark Knight. All that stuff comes in my head.
Do you give him the voice, though, like
I give him the voice.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I'll be honest with you, I'm not saying you guys are wrong for this, so please don't take this as a contradiction. For me, it's funny, like with Superman, where you say, you hear the music and stuff like that. I do tend, like the musical tone and stuff like that, I get into that. But I guess because I've read Batman so much of my life since the 70s, there was no voice. There was no Batman voice. My childhood growing up with it was Adam West and the Super Friends and... the Filmation one, one of them used Adam West, the other one used another voice.
Right.
I never had a Batman voice, that type of thing. Even Kevin probably the closest would be I hear Kevin Conroy, but I don't even, not even that, just because of my and this is where different experiences come in. My attachment to Batman is much more comics than it is media. Because
mine it too.
Yeah.
Mine it too.
I'm not saying you're wrong either. It's funny how we all have a different experience. Go ahead, Jim.
Actually, when we first started reading, I was hearing the Kevin Conroy voice. When we first started this, but lately, and it's not even immediately after Dark Knight. It's been something kind of recently since the Battle for the Cowl that I've really started just hearing the Christian Bale Batman voice when I'm reading Dick Grayson.
Well, you hear all kinds of voices. The reason why you think every character in comics is schizophrenic is because you are.
Oh. I'm not going to argue that.
Both of you. Both of you.
We're not going to argue that point of view.
And I don't mean Darrell. I mean both of you.
Yeah.
No.
We think you have a point there.
Hearing, and it's not. I came from the Neil Adams comics. I didn't get a voice from any of that. I didn't even get a voice from the cartoons. It wasn't until Batman Begins that I started. I don't know what it is about maybe the movies. It touched the heart of me with what I love about Batman so much that I hear Christian Bale's voice. Plus, it makes sense that you wouldn't use the same voice that you would talk in your regular voice when you're Batman, because they would figure you out right there. They would know. Why, Bruce, man, why are you wearing a costume? I know it's you. You would have to change your voice.
There's a comic where I tend to hear the voices more, where I tend to connect with that. Dark Horse's excellent Buffy comic. For me, that's one because it's a TV show that has continued on in comic book form, and the characters are so well written like they were on the show. Mm-hmm. I tend to connect with it that way. For Batman, for me, it's one of those characters. I don't know why, and I'm not saying you guys. This is interesting because I think everyone reads comics differently. When you guys are saying music, I'll hear the animated series theme. I'll hear the music from the Batman Begins and Dark Knight. That type of stuff. That's where I go with it. It's not the voices. I don't know. I'm not sure why. I don't think I have I do as far as, I love Kevin Conroy's Batman. I don't think I have one voice that I firmly associate with Batman, though. There's a lot that I love. Kevin Conroy is one of the top of the list, but, I grew up with Adam West, loving him. The Super Friends voice, to a certain extent, I connect with as well. I'm drawing a blank on who that was at the moment. Casey Kasem's the only voice that I think of when I think of the Super Friends, because I know that one off the top of my head. As a kid, I didn't really care who was doing the voices. But I don't know why I don't associate voices like I do the Buffy comic all the way through. Yeah. Xander and Buffy and Willow and all that. I connect with that immediately, so I get it. So it's not like I'm mocking you guys or I'm thinking anything differently. I don't know why it doesn't go there with Batman with me.
Because you're not a true fan, man. You don't embrace it personally.
Yeah, you don't embrace it.
I don't. Yeah. You know what it really is? I'm trying to get the kind of attachment to Batman that you guys do.
You're just a Fairweather fan.
Well, you know what it is? You guys are so psycho about it that you're scaring me. And it's... There's some moments today, Jim.
Don't worry, I'm taking my medicine. We're fine.
That's all right. That's good.
Well, I stopped yelling at kids saying "swear to me" when they do that. I had to stop,
I had my principal pull me aside and talk to me about that.
Can you imagine?
I've been talking in the classroom. Going, what do you mean you're talking in my classroom? What do you mean you were swearing out at recess? Swearing out at recess, swear to me. You know what trouble I'd get? It's just...
Those kids would get A's and everything, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but I wouldn't be a teacher anymore. and wait, and admittedly, rightfully so.
Like, little Jimmy, I see you not doing your homework.
Here's an interesting thing. When we look at Dick Grayson, I loved the feel of him coming in this different bat outfit. How it felt like the hang glider situation that we were getting in Peter Tomasi's run. It feels like something Dick Grayson would do. He did it so well, he uses a way to quickly get around before using those different bases, and that worked. To have that brought in here, and obviously the outfit is immediately connecting to the movie, but I love that it wasn't just to put in a movie nod, because it obviously, there's no argument there. This is taking directly from the film, but it works for this character storytelling wise because he's done this kind of thing. I don't have a problem with them bringing in nods to the movies. I understand why they do it. It's a way to connect with some newer fans who are maybe reading Batman right now because, or fans coming back because of the films. There's people listening right now that I'm sure they're reading Batman right now that said, hey, I loved Batman Begins. I loved The Dark Knight. This is pulling me back into reading the Bat books. So I get why they're doing this. I don't like it when it's jammed in there. Right. Where it doesn't make sense storytelling-wise. They're just doing it as it doesn't fit right. It doesn't feel. This feels right because it fits Dick Grayson as a character. It also goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, how we've seen some slight variations on the Bat outfit. This guy's already got a couple of Bat suits running, if that's the way we're thinking about it in our head. And this works to me. I love seeing Alfred here being, again, the person that's feeding him the info that he needs, being his eyes and ears in places where Dick needs that little support. There is a partnership going here, and Alfred is keeping it going, and this relationship works because of it. It actually works similar to the way we're seeing it in the movie, because in the movie we are seeing more. I thought in Dark Knight we got to see a little bit more of Bruce Wayne as a detective, but again, Alfred has a much larger role in that as well, as did Lucius Fox. But this works here in that kind of dynamic because of who Dick Grayson is. And I love that. This whole thing with the false face clubs where he's doing this investigation, looking for this girl, he's going down to the street level, really trying to talk to these kids and reach out to them. What happens when it's a kid shot in front of you? What does that do to you? You're seeing a kid shot in front of you because the kid was taking a chance saying, hey, this is Batman. What's that going to do to the level of trust of people on the street level? When, for speaking to you, they get shot. So this kid's been shot now because he was taking a chance and saying, hey, this is Batman. I got to talk to Batman. I can't walk away. This is wrong what's happened to this girl. Batman's going to take care of this. I was shot because of it. Now, the kid, do you take it the kid's going to die? Because there's the at the end. The kid's not.
I see I see a new character joining with Batman. Because he made the noise still. Plus, this kid, out of all the other kids, he was brave enough to say, I'm still going to talk to Batman, even though I know I could be killed.
Here's the question. I guess it's funny. This is where I'm reading this differently now. I think the kid's mortality is in question. I guess I was taking it at first that he's dead for sure. Now I think he's just been shot.
My feeling on this is very simple. Na 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 na.
You think he's dead?
Na na na. Oh yeah.
But why the?
Not yet.
Why this?
Okay.
At
Hold
the
on.
end.
Not currently.
Okay.
He's about to die.
Okay.
Or. Yeah, when
will
I first
Batman
read this,
prevent it?
Yeah,
because if think about it, how it made me think of it, put me in the tone of Batman. Every ward that's been that Batman has taken in, or every person that has joined with Batman, has been someone who kind of is brave enough to do the right thing, and Batman is coming to talk to them. Everybody else is running. This kid, he's saying, it's Batman. I'm going to talk to Batman. I'm going to tell him what's going on. I'm going to give him the information. To me, that's a brave thing to do. I mean, it was so easy. They could have just shot him and then have Batman holding him in his arms, and he's not even saying anything. But because he gave him that little sound, it makes me think maybe he's going to save the kid, and then the kid will be kind of added to the to the background characters. He'll be a little background character.
A new insider?
Yeah, like an insider.
And to be honest, it could very easily. And that would be a good Batman story that he's able to save the kid in the nick of time. Just something just...
This issue's out Wednesday.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
with the kids on the cover. I just went to go look at DC's website because I'm like, I want to see the kids on the cover.
Man, that's a lot of crosses by the kids.
While Black Mask and his Ministry of Death struggle to maintain control of Gotham City, the Dark Knight sets his sight on Kitty Hawk, a young thief pivotal to the outcome of Black Mask's gang war. But will a powerful adversary, thought long dead, spoil all of Batman's plans? Guest starring Oracle and the Penguin. Thought long dead? Who's... That can't be Black Mask, right?
No, I don't think he's not a character long thought dead.
Because
well,
that wouldn't
Black Mask technically is thought.
Well, that wouldn't be considered long.
Yeah, that would that just recently happened in the Catwoman.
Okay, what about Nightwing villain from the Nightwing series? Is there any that was...
I mean, it's standing out.
Okay.
Not Blockbuster. That's for sure.
Well, what happened to the kid, the guy that acted like he was Nightwing? Remember he tried to be Nightwing's partner and then went real crazy?
That to me seems lame, though. Like, this has got to be somebody big. I would think.
Now, who was that?
Because it says that's not a powerful adversary.
No, he was a dangerous one, though.
Right, but this is saying, but will a powerful adversary long thought dead?
See, once again, when you say powerful adversary long thought dead, Joker's the first name that pops.
But he's not long thought dead.
Well,
right.
Well, yeah.
True. Do you think the Joker dead?
No, but he's gone. So.
Yeah. I don't think it's the ventriloquist.
Because he is dead. We know that from Black Knight. And it's been dead for quite
a while. There's been a new ventriloquist.
Yeah, the female ventriloquist.
I don't know. I don't know at the moment.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know.
What about... Well, I don't think this is the case, I'll be honest with you, but just something that just popped in my head. What if it is the female ventriloquist?
Well, she's not long thought dead.
Yeah, true.
Well, that doesn't mean that that's who Black Mask is, though.
Right.
So that could be somebody independent of all this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
looking forward to seeing what this week's issue brings.
Yeah, now I have to. You're gonna make me go and get it before Friday. I was gonna.
Well, that's why I was. Wait, I get my books on Thursday. I don't know if I can wait. This is out for us. This is out tomorrow. This is Tuesday night. We're recording this. I'm like, do I want to wait till Thursday to read this? I don't think so. And I gotta be honest with you. I beelined right to DC's site to see when this is out. Ooh, another thing for everybody out there listening to this, speaking of Batman stories, I just saw last week, I wouldn't have kept an eye on this, Batman the Cult is in a new printing. If anybody hasn't read that book, buy The Cult immediately. It's awesome.
Do you think it could be somebody from The Cult, though?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm literally looking on the site right now.
Usually, when they when they redo a trade,
that was Deacon Blackfire.
Usually, when they redo a trade, it usually has something to do with what's currently.
Well, that was to tell you the main villain in that was Deacon Blackfire, and he was a Black Lantern.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's pretty safe to say that Deacon Blackfire is not.
It's not going to happen.
I was not, and just to clarify with everybody, I was not throwing that out as anything to do with this. I just, on my top 5 list of all-time favorite Batman stories, The Cult will always wind up there every single time. I voted for Jason Todd to live based on The Cult. If I had not read The Cult, I would have voted twice to kill him. So it's one of those stories, if you want to read a good Jason Todd as Robin story, The Cult is one of those, where you'll sit there and question whether or not this brat should have lived or died. That's the one. I guarantee you he got votes to live off. Because Denny O'Neil always said that it was, and when I talked to Jim Starlin said that it was one of those stories where I'm almost positive Jim Starlin wrote The Cult. He did. And it's art and cover by Bernie Wrightson. It's from 1989. It was a 4-issue prestige miniseries. It's 208 pages. If you have not picked this up, do yourself a favor and grab The Cult. one of the short list of all-time great Batman stories.
Yes.
That you couldn't get.
No, get it if you can.
Could not get it.
I might buy another copy and gift it to people. I'm not kidding.
I know you're not.
You've already got it.
I already have it.
Yeah, which I didn't expect, because that might have been your gift. You might have had another one. I'm glad you said something. But it's a story I cannot recommend enough, and it's an easy gift for people. So if you already own it, buy it for a friend, because I want to see these stories stay in print, because I think it's just a great story.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Guys, we talk about books that we're really enjoying. And Jim, you said this is your favorite out of the Bat books right now.
This is the favorite of the Bat titles.
Red Robin. And it's funny, Chris Yost and Marcus 2. This Marcus 2, I'm looking at this cover here. I love, Jim, I echo your statement about Freddie Williams. I loved what he was doing on there with Robin, so I'm not taking anything away from this. Marcus 2 is nailing this book right now.
Yes, he is.
And this is a character, Tim Drake, Tim Wayne, whatever you want to call him. Tim has been a character that, as far as writers and art teams, has been treated really, really well. There's been some filler. There's a couple of runs where you can sort of say, okay, it wasn't quite up to those standards. But you got, the Chuck Dixon, Fabian Nicieza. You've got Adam Beechin. I really enjoyed his run. I could keep going on and on.
I loved Adam Beechin's run. I think that was one of my top favorites.
Chris Yost right now is in that category. He understands the character. It's a character who, out of what happened with Battlefield, I loved how the Fabian Nicieza and Freddie Williams run ended, where it took him to a place that fit for where he was going in Battle for the Cowl. Battle for the Cowl led him into this series. This series picked right up without missing a beat. With the character in the same place, got to give a shout out to Jeff Johns for what he did in Adventure Comics with him in a one-issue thing. This character feels totally like he did in this book. Right now, this is a character that's being written consistently well. And in the Blackest Night Batman miniseries, he was written consistently well here. This is a book right now, in its acknowledgement of what happened in that miniseries, is, I think, using those events in a way that is further explaining where this character's head's at right now, and I really like that. This is a beautiful book, though. And it does, I agree with you, Jim, it has high standards to live up to, because my expectations on what I get from a Robin book are through the roof, because I thought when Freddie came back on the book doing the art, it was kicked up a notch. I love watching artists grow and continue to, change and do new things. This is a book. This art team is continuing to grow on this book as well. Yeah. And like I said, they've got a lot to live up to, and they're doing it. It's a great looking book.
Yeah, they're definitely hammering it, and I'm really enjoying the story, but I'm also enjoying, visual, and it's a good meshing. This is a good team, a writer art team going on. This guy Drawer is real good.
and the writer is a good wordsmith.
Yes.
We're at Bangkok, Thailand, and these before sequences throughout this, where we continue to see the development of how this Council of Spiders was formed. I like time shifts in stories. I know it's something, Jim, you and I on the show have constantly debated. There's been stories where you haven't liked it. There's been stories where you have. I'm a fan of it because I like... A lot of times it's necessary. Get us into the action. And also get me to my heroes. Get me to what my heroes are doing now. This is a great way to kind of get us to know the big bads in the story and understand how they came together in such a cool way. Yeah. I love these moments. Easy, my friend. I am not your enemy. Not yet, anyway. I have been watching you. I heard how you hunted and killed underworld figures, organized crime families, and killers. I admire this. And that's great dialogue.
I love the growth of her. Mm-hmm. From that scared little girl who was, abused and sold off, by her family, to just this powerful vixen, dangerous. She's got a really cool sex appeal going. She's just, all kinds of good. And, well, in very evil form, but, good in an evil way. How about that? It's an enjoyable reading, and it's we talk about, with the flashback going back and forth, I like how we got bits and pieces up, building to this point where it's now present day. We will see her interacting present day up against Tim, up against the rest of, the council, and the various characters and whatnot. It's a really nice, wonderful build.
Tam Fox. This is a character I adore right now.
Yeah.
First of all, this issue sold me on her. Up until now, I've enjoyed. I think she's been a great storytelling technique. With this issue, I've got to say, I see a potential love interest here. The inner dialogue for her is really what sold me. You get the idea that this is a girl who has had some martial arts training, but self-defense training, and that comes through in this issue. It's not, I'm going to go out and attack and hold my own and that type of thing. She runs at the right times. She uses self-defense for its true purpose, to give yourself a few extra seconds where it's necessary and just to get away from it all. And that's one of the things I like about her. She's smart. She's scared, appropriately scared. Her inner dialogue shows this is terrifying. There is things going on around her that are totally outside her world and her realm, but she is smart enough to try and analyze the situation and try to somehow escape it. And that's what it feels like. It feels like survival horror. I'm trying to run out of this thing. What can I do to escape? She does not feel like she's a police officer or anything like that. She is out of her element. Her analysis of Tim and the growth of her understanding of him. She thinks, in the start of this, she thinks this is this playboy son, spoiled rich brat who's off joyriding and getting himself involved in things that are underground, and she's like, she's probably thinking to herself right now, how did I get involved in all this? Why am I involved in all this? Her respect for him growing all the way through. She knows his dual identity. Granted, she doesn't know about Bruce Wayne and Batman, but she knows enough about him that these two could start a relationship where all the cards are out on the table. She knows he has a dual life and grows to respect him throughout this by his actions and what he does. I will be curious to see how this relationship grows throughout. It doesn't, I mean, what do you guys think about her? Where do you want to see her? Do you want to see her as a love interest, as a friend? What do you want to see? Darrell, I'll throw it back at you first.
I want to see her develop her as a friend first, so that and then they can gravitate towards being a love interest. So, because I really wanted, if they're going to be a love interest, I wanted them to last for a little while.
Jim?
Yeah, well, I like her. I think she's a really cool character. I want to see her as a friend and not go into the love interest, but my sole reason is because I want to see Tim and Stephanie get together. And it's an unhealthy relationship for both of them. I know that, but there's just something about the relationship. I want to see them work it out. I want to see them each, because I look back and I consider myself friends to both of them, and I think they could each bring out the good in each of them. But
we've talked about this.
I know,
before.
and that's why
but I want to talk about why, because you're saying it's unhealthy because of the discussion we've had with it, and I want to talk to you about that because I think that's an interesting discussion here. I love Stephanie Brown. I love Tim. I loved reading them together in Robin. I root for them too, but realistically, I'm looking at where Tim's at mentally right now. I'm looking at a Tam Fox. I'm like, this is a girl who organically makes sense, could really help him with where he's at the moment. This is a relationship that could go through them helping each other out. I do see in those extreme situations, and the reason why I'm saying love interest, typically in extreme situations like that where you start doing that, romantic entanglements come through easily. Whether or not those romantic entanglements can last, like Darrell's saying, depends upon how healthily that relationship expands as time goes. I don't care if they're romantically involved or they become friends too. I kind of like what Darrell's saying. I'd like to see them stick too. But going back to Stephanie, part of the problem I have with that relationship is not I adore Stephanie. Tim was never really good to her. I mean, he was trying to be protective of her, but looking back on that, how much did Tim really respect her and really try to push her to be everything she could be? He tried to keep her out of all this and force her out of all it, but what did he ever do to better Stephanie? Other than that he thought it was his responsibility to make the decision as far as whether or not she should be a vigilante, then how was he ever, if let's go on that theory that maybe let's say he was right, What was he doing then to help guide her on the path of where she should actually go, to help her find out what that was? Nothing. He didn't do anything for her. What did she ultimately really do for him? Where, I guess, what I'm asking this, not, you might see it differently than I do, so I'm asking the genuine question, what do you see that they bring to each other that makes that a good relationship, other than that you like them both? Because you and I are 100% in sync there.
It's funny because after our last discussion, I started looking at it more, and that's why I opened this time up with, I know they're an unhealthy relationship. Because I do exactly see what you're saying. It just, some of the stuff, I look back to the early beginnings of it. When, Tim was there for her when she was pregnant and going through all that stuff. And that was great. And you see, Tim being this great guy, and he wants her to be a better person, not get into the crime fighting role.
And I'm going to let you finish. I just want to say one thing. I'm going to be honest with you. If there's a conversation right now where you're starting to bend me a little bit, you pulled out I was asking you for an example. You're making a good one.
Yeah, because right there, that was, for me, where I see those two helping each other and being strong things for each other. Now, when they meet up again, because we know there's going to be a meetup between Red Robin and Batgirl, if Tim continues to treat her the way he treated her before, then I would be 100% in agreement with you. Yes, she can do better than him.
She wouldn't take it now.
Right.
No, she wouldn't.
Right.
Who she is as Batgirl now is... and I'm anxious...
And we're both agreeing.
I want to see that meeting in the worst way.
Now, if Tim recognizes that, okay, you know what, now you're stepping into the game, then maybe there would be something. But if Tim goes into this with the exact same way he's always dealt with her, I'm going to reach in the comic, smack him upside his head, and say, knucklehead, check it out, that's not the same girl. That's a hero now.
Now, the interesting question... I'm sorry, Darrell, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can see them... It's weird because and they're not real people, but I could see them getting together like when they're both in their late 20s, going down the line. I can see them being a much healthy relationship to the point where they can actually get together and get married. But at this volatile point in both their lives, I still, like when they showed Stephanie trying to talk to Tim in the earlier issues of Red Robin, it still seems like they have that push and pull with each other. And it's like it's a natural thing that they do because they're just not there yet.
Here's my interesting thing, and I would like to see with them. Because typically when you're in a relationship like that is not good for either party, can you meet years later as different people? Because there's been growth for her, certainly. There's been growth for him. Can he see the growth in her and approach her in a different way now? Can she approach him in a different way because of the changes they've gone through? Are they there yet? That is an interesting story to me, to see what they're like when they meet. Is there differences? How do they react to each other? Do they walk away with a different respect for each other? Do they start over with a new respect for each other? I don't know. That is interesting to me. So I don't know. I'm curious to see their next meeting. Is there going to be, is Tim going to develop a different, what is his relationship with Tam Fox and how is that going to develop along the way? The two of them are right now, she can't leave this.
Yeah.
I do love the cliffhanger of the last issue. The responsibility Tim has to feel right now is he left her there. He was duped because of his head being in the clouds, because of what happened with Blackest Night Batman. And I love that that's it. He already was off his game because of this search for Bruce. And he's admitted that throughout the series. He's running on an emotional level that Bruce would have never let him run on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely would have.
And that's a distinction I love. And I love that Tim, as a veteran, is recognizing this. He knows he's not operating the way he should because of the emotional investment. He's not being objective when he needs to be. He is off his game. He addresses it in this issue. I love that. He feels responsible for what happened to Tam because of that and is reacting accordingly and taking ownership that this is my fault for being off my game. I should know better than this. And it's something we saw in Adventure Comics. We're seeing it here. Again, consistency, editorial, the editorial behind the scenes that are running his appearances right now, I want to just say thank you. Writers that are running his appearances right now, thank you. This is where if you have a character appearing in multiple books and you nail this like they are right now, he's interesting. He's fun to follow because all of these stories are coming together and making this one have even more impact. So it's good stuff. I love these moments, though, where we see her looking for the opportunity. She sees them fighting. She gets up and she's like, go run. And we see her running away because she's got, these guys are, the sixth-armed guy and the guy with the scythe are like sitting there fighting and duking it out over there. She sees an opportunity where she thinks they're not paying attention. Now, of course, these are ninjas.
These are professionals assassins
who are totally aware of their environment and everything surrounding them. So they're seeing things, and we see it too. They won't even notice. He's watching right out of the corner of his eye as she's running away. So we see that she's busted. I love these moments. As we flip the page and we start taking a look over in Budapest, this is an interesting moment. Prudence. With White Ghost. White Ghost, another character whose appearances have been very consistent. We see him in Azrael. We've seen this guy appear in multiple places in the DC universe, in the Bat universe right now. A very enigmatic character. And he's, what are you doing? Why are you following him? Now, I actually disagree with White Ghost here. Ra's al Ghul said that Red Robin's in charge. So part of me is thinking, and you guys had an interesting theory about this, part of me was, my initial read-through, I was thinking that she's following his orders because Ra's al Ghul said so. But I forget, this came up with you guys and we were just chatting casually about this. You guys had an interesting theory about what might be going on here with her, as far as the attachment to Tim Drake. Darrell, what do you think's going on with her?
With you talking about with
Prudence. She can't speak now because of her situation.
Yeah, I saw her as being the kind of developing like the Talia. She could be his Talia. I mean, they're never going to hook up. But he pretty much saved her life, 2-3 times already?
Yeah, multiple times now.
And no matter how bad she's been, she pretty much almost tried to kill him. He still treats her with a sort of kindness that I think that it's going to wear her down. I think she's going to wind up being one of his allies in the organization.
I love that she wouldn't kill because he ordered it.
Yeah,
she's standing behind
issues before,
right? Because she has no hesitation to kill.
Yeah,
no. But yet she knows, hey, I'm not supposed to kill here. He told me not to.
Tim gave the order, no kill order.
Do you think that's because of Ra's al Ghul or because of her respect for him, or is it some combination of both?
For him, because remember in issue 6 when he also gave the order not to kill, and they were fighting the guy with the fake claws, she was still trying to shoot to kill him.
Right.
So she didn't care that it was the order not to kill. All she knew is, I want to kill this guy. I think she's starting to really kind of respect him.
Yeah, and the fact that he wants to complete the mission while saving lives.
Right.
I'm not talking about necessarily saving the lives of those that they're going after, but also saving her life. Mm-hmm. And that builds a certain amount of loyalty, in the sense saying you actually care whether or not I live or die.
Right.
You care about completing the mission because she's got to respect his work ethic. He does not quit. He has kept going. And when something fails, he doesn't walk away, lick his wounds, and go home. They both were close to death. He's still going.
He improvises, adapts, and overcomes. And that's you look at how she's been trained and, she brought up. It's, we talk about the honor code, that Kate had. Well, same thing with this assassin's code. They have a code of honor. It's a little skewed because they are killers, but there is still that code. And she's now looking at Tim, and she's seeing Tim in a different way. He's not just one of those costume do-gooders. He is a warrior. He has his code, he has his beliefs, and he's actually given her life value. The League of Assassins, the assassins do not have any value. They are nothing. They are all pawns, all expendable in the service of Ra's al Ghul.
Yep.
So he is now saying, no, you have value. You are not just a pawn. You are actually a person. You are somebody. And I think that right there has given her some empowerment.
And your skills have value to me.
Right.
There are things you can do and bring to the table that don't involve killing.
Yeah. Now, I firmly believe if she were to be asked to explain herself to Ra's al Ghul, she would write it out or say, I don't know how she would say, you gave the order that I follow his orders. That's why I did it. She won't admit that she's following Tim because of who he is. She will go with the story that I'm only following orders. I was told to follow his orders. That's what I will do.
There is, it's funny when you guys mentioned Talia. There's a sexiness about her.
Oh, yeah.
In the way that, the loyalty that she shows and things like that. There is a dangerous sexiness about this character, which, I'll be honest, if you'd asked me this a couple issues ago, I would have said, you guys are loopy.
Hey, man, I've said it before. I'll say it 1,000 times. Dangerous women and crazy women are awesome.
But for me, where she starts becoming sexy is this show of taking a stand against White Ghost based on that situation. I am curious to see why she's doing it, and if there is an attachment there on any level, what it is actually. I don't know that it's necessarily romantic. And it could be. I'm not saying I'm against that. What I'm saying is I see a lot of possibilities on what could be caused, and that could be a loyalty thing, could be whatever. I don't care what it is. This type of stuff always intrigues me, and it's sexy whether or not it's romantic or not because it's a stand, and there's something always impressive about that. I love this moment with White Ghost where he's heading to the cradle.
Yeah.
How? You were blindfolded. Again, this is not a guy new. This isn't Damien. Nope. And I'm going to say that. While Damien has all the skills in the world, Damien might be able to pull this off and get away with it the same way.
Yeah.
But you expect it with Tim.
Yeah.
That's the huge difference. Damien, we'd be kind of like, oh, cool, that's because of his training and he grew up that way and all that stuff, and we'd be justifying it. I don't think we would be as, I'm matter of fact in this, I'm like, yeah, this is Robin. What are you doing, dude? You actually thought you were going to pull one over on him? Come on, White Ghost.
Well, Damien did have one of those moments in the annuals.
Yeah.
And I remember, you think about it and you're reading it, I was like, oh, okay, that was cool, yeah. And it was something where, that was neat that he did it, and it made sense he could pull it off. But with Tim, it was just second nature. I knew all along he knew exactly where he was because of who he is.
I'll tell you what the difference is with Tim. I agree with you on Damien 100%. The difference is with Tim, not only am I saying you better believe he did this, I'm like, you have no idea. If you think he doesn't know about this.
He got caught by the pig when he was trying to follow him, remember?
Right.
Tim couldn't have gotten caught.
Right.
By him like that.
Or he would have done it on purpose.
Or he would have thought of a way to get word to Dick when he got caught.
Right. It is interesting. And even if, I'm going to take that back to a certain extent. Tim has been caught before. Bruce has been caught before. So, I don't necessarily want to say that they wouldn't have. I think the distinction would be, though, our confidence level as readers over what their capabilities would be, even if they got caught, are different than they would be with Damien.
I think Tim is so much like Bruce in the way that even when it looks hopeless, he's always trying to think of a way to achieve whatever mission that he's trying to get done.
You know what? The other thing with Damien would be, because he's such a hothead, he has kind of the problem that Jason Todd did. Although I want to be careful putting the two of them together because there are distinctions between them. But the difference would be his reaction will always be an extreme, heavy, emotional reaction. It will be about proving himself to the villain. It will be about getting the one-liners in to say, right, I'm better than you. Whereas Tim would keep his mouth shut, analyze the situation. If he was saying things, there would be a mental purpose of throwing off the person holding him. It has to do, again, with experience. The experience level between the two is different, so my expectation is different because of the experience level. Gotham City, Lucius Fox and Alfred.
Once again, great writing for Alfred.
Yeah.
Really in character. It was a beautiful usage, pulling, the fact that we have Tam in there, and even Tam's earlier dialogue, she's blaming, she's like, I'm going to die, and it's my father's fault. So they show the father. It was a great tie-in, and a great just put him right into the spot.
Also something I really needed to see, though, Lucius Fox's reaction to what's going on with Hush. I needed to see this somewhere. It makes sense here, again, going off of what you're saying, because we got Tam in here. But it's like, I'm glad to see, this was something I really liked. We were talking about those annuals again. In the annuals, we were seeing scenes that we've been wanting to see all along, and fit in a way that makes sense. This fits in a way that makes sense. I wanted to see this conversation with him and Alfred. It lets us know exactly how much Lucius does know in reality. It also lets us know that Alfred's making the smart move saying, hey, you are witnessing this, what Bruce is doing and how he's behaving. If you notice anything that's a little out of sorts, that maybe I'm not catching, give me a heads up and I'll make sure to keep an eye on it and do something about it and, give my own 2 cents worth in on the whole thing. Let's work together to keep an eye on this and stomp it out, because they're worried about the money. And I think Alfred's worried about more than the money, though. He's worried about what the money's being used for. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are worried about the money being, obviously, them destroying the Wayne legacy and all that. I totally agree with that. So the money, the dollar amounts are an issue. But it's also, what is this guy really up to? If he is out of our sight, if there is a blind spot, we're done. This guy is dangerous. They know that. They can't let him out of their sight, and they're keeping an eye on it. I love this bit. So it is interesting if it does turn out that he is Black Mask.
Yeah.
That adds a whole other twist to this, because he is somehow putting up a blind. That's the interesting part. If he's Black Mask, how is he pulling that off?
Because they're constantly watching him.
Right.
And I was just like, if it is him, that'd be outstanding. I hope they show exactly how he's getting away from them.
Vicky Vale, I was glad to see the talk about, because you would think with a guy like Bruce Wayne, high profile to both of them, a guy like Lucius Fox would say in confidence to Alfred, hey, I wouldn't say this to anybody publicly, but a Vicky Vale, she did the right, she's a smart girl, got out when she could, because that relationship would have been terrible for her, and I loved those moments, and how she is keeping an eye on not only Bruce, but specifically Tim Drake. She's looking for a story. She wants to know what's going on. She's like a bloodhound. She's smelling something, and just a heads up there. So now Alfred finds out, of course, about Tam, and he's like, "What? You've got to be kidding me!" Which again shows us we've always wondered, how much does Lucius know? Clearly, very little. Yeah, this
Lucius
is not the movie Lucius Fox.
No.
Yeah. I just love that. Oh, Lucius, I'm not sure that was the safest thing to do.
Back to this Tam sequence. I talked before about one of the things I really liked. We see that I've taken self-defense classes, and she talks about multiple kinds of self-defense that she's taken. But again, keeping in mind self-defense. Martial arts a lot of times are portrayed as people take self-defense classes, people are offensive with them. That's not the way they're trained to be in self-defense classes. It's always trained, how do you get yourself out of a dangerous situation so you're safe? Mm-hmm. In this case, I love that she picks the moment, and everything I've learned hasn't exactly prepared me for a guy covered in spiders coming at me with 2 freaking sickles. She takes a moment, gets the opening opportunity. Fight or flight, I choose run like hell. Yes, you do.
Oh, God.
If she stood toe-to-toe with him, she would have been dead. And if they had written anything less, I would have been angry. Not that I want her dead, but this was totally what works for me right here. I can buy that she would pull off a quick opportunity, but as you see, with how quickly he catches up with her, that worked for me. This is it's just such a...
And I like she does keep her cool in this situation. She's in a very extreme situation, but when the guy catches up to her...
Except, how, I'm going to say, wait, what she's keeping her cool only in the sense that she's able to pull out a few thoughts, but hang on. I don't even know how to get out of here. I don't know where to go. She's panicking now. Oh God, I'm going to. Which I'm with you in the sense that she was as rational as you could expect somebody to be up to this point. So you're right. Then the keeping the cool part. I don't want to come off as totally disputing you here, but this is what I'm loving about it, is the build to the panic. It was over time. So I don't mean to say this is something I really digged about this, because this character was written so well. You're right. Nice, calm, cool.
Build, yeah.
As calm as can be, considering. So, we're not saying that this girl was like chilling back, having some coffee, waiting for him and his opportunity. She was panicked, but it's built over time as she's realized, I have no choice now. I'm no longer hiding behind crates. I am on their radar. I thought they didn't see me. They did. I repent. all of my sins. Oh God, have mercy on me. Dad, And then that moment, he came back. He came back for me. This is a moment where right now I'm like, this page is a relationship-changing page. She now, in one page, sees this guy. She had assumptions every other page beforehand on who Tim Drake is. Here, she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. My eyes are open to a whole new possibility about this guy, about who he is at his core. These are core-defining moments for a person. She might, after this, still think all of those things, but now, instead of thinking that that's who he is as his core, she knows in this moment who he is at his core. And that's something where, whether it's the friendship or this becomes a romantic relationship, it is going to be defined based on this moment. Her decisions about here from here on out, every single time, this is the foundation moment. It's very real. I love it. The dialogue sells it for me, as does the visuals of the moment, because that is a really sharp kick with the throwing of his versions of
his brains, his discs,
whatever they are,
the Robin discs, the Red Robin discs,
right?
It was nice, just bam, bam, and he's doing the stick and move fighting style that he has to do in these situations. It's one of the things I've always digged about when they show Tim fighting.
Yeah.
Because he's got to be high action, high moving. He's not sit there, hold, and beat. No, it's scramble. And I love when he pulls out the staff.
Yeah.
Because that is just so cool. I still think of back in the early days when he had the little whistle carved into it so it would do a little chirping, as he spun it. It's just, there's some classic.
And so glad it's not here right now because it doesn't fit.
It stopped fitting him a while ago. And it was like he grew
if he was in the Robin outfit and he was using that right now, I would still be okay with it. You don't want to use anything right now that's going to with reason why he's in this costume. I would be irritated if he was using it because of that.
He's separating himself from who he was, and he said from the beginning of this thing he's got to separate himself. So but it's still because I've said before, this is my my friend Tim Drake is coming back. Mm-hmm. And it's stuff like this showing this. This is the return of the hero. And you said how he came back. He came back for me. I was sitting there and I was hooping and hollering, just because it was the hero right at the last moment. I'd love seeing that in comics.
He never left, though.
No, he didn't leave, but it's,
I know he went to a darker place internally.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've seen in this series multiple times where he has veered off his chosen path to go after Bruce because it was the right thing to do.
Right. But
But you're right. Let me correct myself on one thing, though. You're right in the sense that we've seen a progression in this series in the 7 issues now from where he was at in the end of Battle
there
for the
is
Cowl.
character growth there, and it's character growth back to I want to say the position he was in before. And that's
not yet,
not yet, but he's there. He's getting there. It's a slowly. He's almost there, and I think this is one of the big things where we see him. Because you mentioned it earlier about how he acknowledges.
I think Tam's going to be a key to that.
Right.
Definitely has a strong spot to it. But you said earlier how he acknowledges that he's been off his game and he needs to get better. And right now Tam's blood would be on his hands, and he can't let that happen. And it's that kind of determination.
I got it. This dialogue right here, the cradle. Now I know I'm skipping this like little sequence with the character development again of our Council of Spiders, and that's fantastic. I've enjoyed that. But I love the pacing of this because we get to see that moment, then we jump right back to the cradle now. Look at him. Up until the moment I found him, Tim Drake was a spoiled rich kid joyriding around the world because he could. Then I found him, half dead, blood everywhere, hanging out with ninja and creepy albinos, talking about assassins and spider people, wearing a costume. I didn't know what to think. He was so intense, so angry, almost obsessed with something. But behind it all, he was sad. Tim Drake is the saddest person I've ever met. But through it all, but through all this, me being abducted, held in this cave, the ninja, I was never worried about that because there was something about Tim, despite the sadness, the obsession, the weird costume, just him being there, I knew I was okay. And then, he left, and things went downhill pretty fast. But until then, I felt safe. Tam's going to die.
She has this lengthy, tribe about how she knows she's safe with him, and he's like, she's going to die.
Yeah.
that I still crack up.
But that is his internal worry, because as what he is and how he's been raised, he's been this Tim Drake since a little kid. He discovered this as a little kid.
Yeah.
This is a guy he's grown up most of his life being Robin. And when he wasn't Robin, he was trying to figure things out. He was into all this for the longest time before we even saw him on page with the way he was introduced. Mm-hmm. So it's to see this kid now as a mature, veteran in this moment with her saying, I need to be worried about her. She cannot die in this. I am in a situation where I know I'm outgunned here with the way that they're carrying themselves. I know it. I've got to do everything I can, not only to protect myself and to try and take them down, but to keep her safe. And I don't know if that can happen right here. But I love that her confidence, she sees something more in him. His actions have proven he's not it's not about joyriding. There's something more to, again, this is at his core who he is. She's seeing that right now, because this is the most desperate and violent of situations where we're all sitting here. I'd like to think I would do this. I don't know. You got a 6-armed spider guy there? You got a couple guys with sickles? If it was my wife, I would. You know what? I got to say this about myself. I'd be dead. But if it was my wife, I would have to do something.
Yeah.
I would be dead. Because I got news for you. Tam handled it better than I would. Because I would do something stupid. I'd hit the guy and think I've got a one-up, and he would have sickled me back in the box room.
Yeah. I would have hit then the first strike, then go for the second strike, thinking, I got him on the ropes. Right. No.
I would, overconfidence for me would, at that moment, make me think, I can win this. I can do that. And I would be, Tim would have shown up, and I would have been, in pieces.
Tim is such a... he is such a... He had a code before he even met Batman that I loved how even when he was in his darkest times, he said, there's a code. I will never break that code of not killing. It's just something that Jason Todd never really had. And the situation arrived, he would just do what he wanted to do. But Tim has always stood fast in his beliefs, no matter how dark his life has been.
One of the coolest moments in Night's End, Bruce was retraining again to become Batman. His back had been healed by Chandra Kinsolving, and he was training again to come back. This tells you how much I haven't read this in years, but it's something that has stuck with me so much. And it's one of those stories I'll go back and reread it again and again, because I've read this many times, but it's been years since we've done the show. I've not read this series. He got healed by Chandra Kinsolving and came back to Gotham. And I loved this detail because he thought he had found a way to walk away from being Batman. He was convinced that, that life was something he could give up. Comes back and finds out what Azrael was doing and has a confrontation with him, and he can't win that fight because the mental memory of fighting's there, but not the physical memory. He has to shock himself back into it, retrain himself back into, it's the Rocky moment. I got to get in there and fight. So, he dons a different costume and goes. He goes to Lady Shiva and starts running this awesome gauntlet. Well, throughout the gauntlet, Shiva's trying to turn him into an assassin, turn him into a killer. That's her prize for helping him out. That's her goal and her motivation. It's her sick, twisted motivation, and I loved it. I ate every minute of it up because I'm like, where's this going to go? And she keeps trying to send wave after wave after wave at him to break him. He knows it, seems to kill a guy, and it's all the difference of a knuckle. But Tim, at that moment, Tim did not know that he didn't kill. Tim thought he was so obsessed at that moment that he did it. There was that one split moment of disbelief where he's like, How could you do this? Was it all... Tim's actually crying in front of him. I mean, I'm totally validating what you're saying here about him with his code. Mm-hmm. This is something where Tim, for him, it's like everything... This is a much younger Tim at this point as Robin. After everything I've been through with Azrael, the one thing that's held on for me was this code that we always had. I admonished Azrael for this. Now one of the deep-rooted reasons why I have this code have done this, and he was in that moment. I remember the emotional power in that moment. And then Shiva left. Like this, she had won, and all this stuff she had left. The guy starts coughing. Bruce had done this thing. It was all, he did this death blow, and it was all the shift of a knuckle from one way versus another. I loved the tiny detail, the way he did it, the smirk on his face, how Dick Grayson knew it, because Nightwing was sitting there at the moment. Just a powerful kick-butt Batman moment that totally plays into this, and I loved that, because it goes right back to that code and the moment for him. It's, I'm going to have to put a spoiler warning in here for Night's End now, but it's one of those things that so totally fits when we talk at the root and core of who these characters are. It's not something that's new. It's something that's been there all along, and it's the reason why we're still, and why you love these characters so much, and why Darrell does and why I do, is because of the consistency of who they are over the years, even as they've become more mature and grown older. I feel like this is the same guy. That's where continuity's cool. Whether you've been reading him for 10 years or more, or 10 weeks, we all have that same notion of who he is. And that's where continuity is. And we feel like he's been there before. It's cool. It's just, I like these guys.
Can't tell. Wow.
I think I ate my microphone somewhere along the way, but...
Dude, man, you were just... Once again, the arms were flailing. You had that, moments.
Are you scared yet?
No.
Okay.
Dude, man, come on.
Mm-hmm. You should be. You're like...
Hey, I see a black ring right over there. I'll come right back.
Yeah. That would be my luck. I'd kill you and you'd come back as a Black Lantern, and I'd keep trying to get rid of you. And the thing would be, too, you'd be dead, so there'd be no incentive for you to go home. So you'd, just be here all the time. So I'd even, I'd buy lights and everything like that. You'd dissipate, and then you'd show up later.
And I'd sing. Right. Constantly.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. You know what? The whole skull thing with you is out the window now. Because I'd kill you, and I'd have the skull here, and this is where you'd reanimate.
Yeah.
So the Jim Seguin skull prop is now officially dead. I just found the downside. Well, there goes that. I do like that this staff has that knife in it.
Nice little twist.
Yeah.
Just that little extra edge, kind of, gets him the cut to get away from the big, 6-armed, nasty monster. And I liked his inner dialogue kind of got cut off halfway when the monster grabbed him. He's like, right at the point in time when he grabbed him. It was one of those things, it gets me into the action, gets me into the moment.
Where I think there could be a possible romance here, too, is he thought he was dead here. The point where he's saying, geez, I didn't have a chance to tell Dick about Bruce being alive, that I was... Because at his point, he's sitting here saying, not just because... It's not for him about being right. It's about letting Dick know that there's something to look for.
Right.
And I firmly believe that. Tim is not a guy that's wired on... He doesn't care whether or not people think he's right or wrong. I care about that. But Tim doesn't... And that's what I like about him, that distinction about this character. That's what's great about him, because I respect him.
He is so Bruce.
Yes.
Because he will call Bruce on something. He will call out Bruce on something that it's a very few, and I'm talking about superpowered meta-humans that would actually confront Bruce, as Batman. He would actually confront him if he felt he was wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny... And Tim, in a million years, I liked that exploration in Teen Titans, for example, that when Tim became kind of a brute, where Tim saw himself as a Bruce-like Batman, I should say, from the future coming back, him realizing that I need to avoid that like the plague.
Yeah.
Because that could so easily be me, and that isn't something that he should aspire to. Because Bruce is the way he is because of deep-rooted trauma that has made him that way. You don't aspire to that.
No.
Dick Grayson's not aspiring to be Bruce right now. Dick Grayson's aspiring to be Batman. There's a huge difference. And when I say he's aspiring to be Batman, it's more he's aspiring to make sure that there is a Batman role in Gotham. But he's not trying to be Bruce. He's trying to make that role his own. I like the difference and distinction where we're not seeing him delve into Bruce mode and being Bruce. He uses that theatrically, but not internally. I love that. It's one of the reasons why him as Batman right now is working for me as well, is we get to see the distinction. I adore Bruce. I would not... As a kid, I wanted to be Batman. I wanted to be 70s adventurer Batman. The Bruce that's in place now maybe Bruce coming out of this might grow, where we don't lose the Bruce that we had before, but, we still see those... That he's gone through all that, but yet experience and seeing what's happened and what Dick has done and Tim and everything like that might somehow change him profoundly, and we might see him grow over time and see some progression with him. That to me is interesting, but you should not want to try and be him by any stretch.
No.
I love this bit with Tam, because she rescues him now, and it was all because he motivated her. What she saw from him. There are people who will motivate you, and I think this is true for any of us, where we sit here and say, I don't know what I would do in that moment. On the other hand, if there's somebody you're seeing being excessively brave in front of you and doing the impossible or fighting against impossible odds for you, that is going to motivate you. Great people motivate people to do things that are outside of them or previously would be beyond them, to somehow step up and shake through their greatest fears. He's doing that. We see that with her internal dialogue. We see it there. I ate that up, too, because that was very well handled. This issue was my favorite issue of Red Robin so far. I mean, easily.
Yeah. This was definitely it's... we're talking some great action sequences, some great character development, these insights that we're all just gushing over. Yeah, and it's, as I said, it's been a build. And even this build started back at the end of the Robin series. So yeah, this is definite payout, for...
Good.
Well, I just love the inner dialogue. I think that's the star of this book, is you constantly get the inner dialogue with Tim.
That's what's great. Comics have a great balance of great visual action, great storytelling through action, and character development that occurs along the way through great dialogue. I think this is a great example of a very well balanced issue. It's beautiful, well written, and my favorite Robin stories are like this. It's one of the reasons why Tim is a character that very similar to Dick Grayson. We talked about the Peter Tomasi run. That's another run that's just Chuck Dixon, wonderful runs on Nightwing. Those are character. That character means so much. Marv Wolfman has handled him so well. We go on and on about characters people that have handled Dick Grayson so well. But these characters mean something because of powerful runs. This Ra's al Ghul moment, I didn't know what to think here. My personal feeling was, I'm like, why is Ra's still standing there? What did they do to Ra's? But I am go ahead, guys, with what do you guys think is going on here? Because you guys definitely have some interesting theories.
There's no way. I did not think this was actually the real Ra's al Ghul.
Me either.
Couple reasons that first got to me is Ra's would not sneak up on him, and they would not be able to get the drop on him. But the other thing, though, it was something I recently, after our last discussion when we were talking about this, I went back and I was rereading the issue, and it was just something with Tim's dialogue. His inner dialogue. He's like, this is wrong. And then I understood. And it was, he's sitting there, he sees Ra's, he's like, why is Ra's here? Wait, this is wrong. Something, then he understood. This Ra's, or the fake Ra's, is there to sacrifice himself so the Spider Council would say they won.
Or
game over.
And see, here's the way I read it, just so you can see it a different way. This is wrong, and then I understood. There's the girl standing behind him, acting as a puppet master, or somehow has already done something to him. That's how I read it. So the reason why Ra's is standing there and saying those things is he's already so out of it because of what she's done.
Could be that too.
You guys opened me up as we were talking about this to a very interesting possibility that it might not really be him. I don't know. Because I'm seeing now that, maybe that is a doppelganger. There's an interesting point there because I could see that going either way. I am very curious for next issue of this because I want to see that.
Oh, yeah. And once again, Tam's inner dialogue. Like I said, my name is Tam Fox, and I'm going to die.
Right. I'm incredibly interested in the next issue. And see, to me, the Bat universe is so pivotally important to me that when I'm having comics that I'm reading, Batman and Robin, this, Gotham City Sirens, all that, where every issue that's coming out of these books, I'm having trouble deciding which one's my favorite for the month. I'm loving the stuff going on in Batman Confidential right now. They've got that Blackhawk storyline, which is darn cool. And that's another one visually pleasing. That's a little out of continuity. It's a Bruce Wayne. Not out of continuity. It's out of time. It's a Bruce Wayne story. The stuff that's going on right now with Straczynski and Brave and the Bold. That stuff is terrific with Bruce. It's the Geek one that was just written. I really enjoyed that one. It's a great time to be a Batman fan. There's just some really cool Kevin Smith's Widening Gyre. That book's brilliant. You can't do more cool Batman stuff than now.
Shoot, even Arkham Asylum 2 is coming out soon.
Yeah, oh, yeah. In the Arkham Asylum mini, that's going on right now as far as, kind of giving us that's one that's got me wondering, whoa.
You mentioned that Arkham is having issues with Black Mask in that. Black Mask is taking down Arkham Asylum. So can Arkham be the Black Mask? Those two are going... Black Mask is messing with Arkham Asylum right now.
And they've been shown, in the same room?
No. They've never shown them in the same room, but they are showing that Black Mask is giving, his minions inside Arkham Asylum, to sabotage the asylum, to sabotage various cells, and just making it... He's trying to, kind of twist Arkham, into thinking that the asylum's lashing out against him.
That might play into the whole Sybil thing you're talking about, where he's got more than one personality.
Could be. Yeah, true.
Yeah. That could be it.
Although, it does add weight. If that's not what's going on, it does add weight, then maybe it's not him. Right. I don't know.
And it's Tommy?
Yeah.
A lot of the evidence does point to Tommy, but part of me just doesn't think it is, just because I don't know, I don't...
And we could be completely swerved.
Right, yeah.
Altogether. I'm so into this. Now, guys, I want to ask one question, because we're getting ready to wrap up on this right now, but the question I want to ask is post all of this. We've seen with this great miniseries, or at least I'm thinking it's a great miniseries, I like the idea that this Bruce Wayne returns, taking a look to see what's actually going on with him, is a miniseries. Because I like that this is being told outside, because it's not going to derail what we're getting right now and everything we're geeking out at. Because there's no reason it should. To me, it's adding to the story. It's giving us the picture of that while we're still getting all this. So I'm a fan of this. Mm-hmm. We're going to get 6 months of storytelling telling us what's going on with Bruce. And then we're going to gradually see the return of Bruce. What do you guys want to see Gotham look like post all of this? Darrell, I'll throw it at you. Go ahead. Where do you want to see Dick Grayson? Where do you want to see Bruce Wayne? Where do you want to see Tim, Damian? Let's stick with those four for right now.
I want to see Damian continue to work with Dick, and I would not mind at all if he kept being Batman, and even if he was Batman in one part of Gotham, and then when I think Bruce really needs to, when he comes back, he needs to work with Tim, because I really think they need to work out some things that they had left over from Morrison's last run. So I would want to see, because I think there's room for two Batmen. As bad as Gotham has gotten right now, I think there is plenty of room. Plus, you want Batman to be more of an ideal, more of a urban myth. Imagine you seeing Batman in this part of town, Batman in that part of town, and being effective. It would scare the hell out of criminals. They wouldn't know what to think.
Jim, what about you?
It's weird because, I've changed my opinion multiple times. Before I was saying, exactly saying I want two Batmans. I want the Dick Grayson and Damian team, and I want the Bruce Wayne and Tim Drake team. And part of me now is shifting a little bit. And I'm thinking I want Nightwing and Damian. I want, Dick to give up the mantle and Bruce be the only Batman and have there only be one Batman. But I don't want to see Tim go back to being Robin. I want him to keep the Red Robin costume and actually turn the Red Robin from the darker image that he initially started to making Red Robin is a hero. Red Robin is a member of the Bat family, and just kind of like how I wouldn't want to see Dick Grayson going back to being Robin, because it's the same thing with Tim. Like, Tim has graduated beyond Robin now. He is Red Robin, and part of me would like to see it. Now, I wouldn't even have an issue with Bruce and Red Robin, Batman and Red Robin teaming together and doing stuff together. But I would go with Nightwing and Robin, and then Red Robin and Batman. Shift some things a little bit. And we talked about how Bruce, would adopt more of how Dick Grayson was running Batman. Have it be, him, he comes back, he realizes, I have to change my ways. I have to adjust how, Dick was doing things and shift up how he was doing it. You said how he was that way in the 70s, the more adventurous Batman. Mm-hmm. Let's bring that back. So,
due to what Dick Grayson's put in place.
Right, due to what Dick has put in place, he realizes, I got to change my MO. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm also thinking, no, it'd be kind of cool to have a two-team Batman. Two Batmans, and I still hold on to that would be a neat idea. Yeah, Batman. I still think that would be a neat idea. Because that would, so I'm very wishy-washy. I want it all.
Well, it's funny as you say that, because I was listening to Darrell and his art, because If I had to give you my firm where I'm at, like as far as passionately, my personal opinion is Bruce Wayne is a character who I think has to be Batman. And when I say that, doesn't mean that Dick Grayson couldn't be. Like, if Bruce was dead and they were writing it that Bruce was dead, could Dick Grayson stay on as Batman and that works for me? Absolutely. The point is, and where I think there's a distinction between Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson is such a well-developed character that he transcends a single identity. He's worked as Robin. He outgrew it, became Nightwing. He worked as Nightwing. He's working now as Batman. He could go back to being Nightwing and not lose anything. If he loses anything, it's because writers haven't taken the opportunity to utilize where this character has grown. I don't think it matters what outfit he's in. I think this character has proven himself to be a main player. I don't think his being on the Justice League, for example, has anything to do with being Batman. I think he should be on the Justice League, whether he's Batman, Nightwing, where he's wearing a silly little Bozo the Clown outfit with the squeaky boots. He can get away with doing that as well. He's Dick Grayson. At this point in time, this guy has earned his spot. He is a main player in the DC Universe, and if he isn't utilized in that capacity after this, there is something seriously wrong. Because there's got to be some writer who can take advantage of this opportunity to have fun with this guy. Now, my personal preference would be for him to become Nightwing. As I hear, like when Darrell was talking about the multiple Batman idea, you mentioned how you were kind of wishy-washy that. I'm not against it. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm not going to read Batman anymore because there's two Batmen. I'm so used to the concept of there being a single Batman and Bruce Wayne being driven to that. And I do feel that he's a character, like, I don't want to see Bruce Wayne as being, there was that rumor that went around about Bruce becoming a new god or something like that. And I don't know how true that was in reality or something like that. I wouldn't mind them exploring that the same way they're exploring him being out of that role, but none of that could ever stick for me. I don't want to see Bruce Wayne develop a new costume persona.
No.
That, to play around, if there's a storytelling reason to play around with it as far as like a guy's got to, hey, for a year, let's do this with Bruce, and how cool would that be? I'm on board. I think that stuff's always interesting. But ultimately, what would happen with that is it would lead to why Bruce has to be Batman. Dick Grayson isn't limited that way. Could he be a Batman out of this? Yes. So when you guys are saying that, I'm like, I can see that. I'm with you guys. It's not my preference, but I also wouldn't be against it. And I know there's a lot of people who would love that. So I can get that, and I could be on board with that. But I think he's a guy who, I think Nightwing, to me, isn't just as iconic a character. I think that character has been around for so long now. I think it's been so well established by so many great writers that I think the only difference out of this should be with whatever role Dick Grayson's in, it needs to be prominent in the DC universe. I don't think it matters what outfit he's wearing to be on things like the Justice League or whatever. Whether he's on a superhero team or not, he needs to be in a title that was prominent. Nightwing, remember, and we've talked about this, Nightwing was not canceled due to sales numbers. It was canceled for storytelling reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Here's the thing. I was kind of wishy-washy in my thing, so I'm going to give a definitive answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've finally locked it down. What we do is we bring back the Nightwing series, taking up the numbering that had left off, add Damian to the Nightwing series. Keep them both in Gotham, but it's Nightwing and Robin, and give the Batman title to just... Bruce Wayne in the cowl, and we end the Batman and Robin series.
Let me finish mine on that one because
okay.
I've got
that's what I'm saying
theories,
right now.
I've got theories on my 4 too.
That's my line. That's
okay.
what I'm saying. And next week it'll change.
Damian is a character, when you talk about wishy-washy, I'm very torn on. Because when you guys are talking about how great he is with Dick Grayson, amen, I 100% agree with you. I'd like to see them continue on together too because I think that's interesting. There's that other part of me that's kind of like, Bruce comes back and we've got this... If Damian's still Robin, we're running under that assumption right now. And I'm not even 100% sold that that's what I necessarily want. Because there's Tim, and I'm like, if Tim's not going to be Red Robin, well, there's something I like about him partnering with Bruce when he comes back too. So there's that part of me that's really torn because, as Darrell said, there's more stories to tell with those two together, especially after all of this.
Oh, yeah.
How cool. And then to see Dick and Tim, I personally would love to see this whole Bat family working together and be so much stronger coming out of this, where there's some real partnerships between Nightwing and Bruce, Nightwing and Robin, Nightwing and Red Robin, or whatever role Tim's in. Damian is an interesting wild card for me because I could see Batman and Robin with Damian being Robin, now having to deal with his dad instead of Dick. He is not the same man that Dick Grayson is. The way Dick Grayson has handled him is not the way Bruce would have.
Oh, yeah.
And that to me is, there's agreeing with both of you guys 110% with what you're saying. There is that strong part of me that's like, there's some interesting stories to be told with those two coming out of this as well. And yet, I agree with everything that you guys are saying interesting about every other scenario. So, while I have my preferences, Tim, I'm very torn on whether or not I want to see him stay as Red Robin if he's not going to be partnered up with Bruce. Yet, he's another character like Dick who I think Tim's series has worked solo during very long stretches where Bruce was doing his own thing and it really wasn't a Batman and Robin partnership. Tim was doing his own thing. He is very independent. A lot of the Teen Titans years, your favorite Teen Titans years, he wasn't like a true partner of Batman at that point. He was doing his own thing over there, kind of what Dick Grayson did. He was in that
private school and all that stuff. There was the whole,
Right. What Dick Grayson did during that time. So he works in that capacity. So keeping him as Red Robin, having him do his own things and being like kind of a solo character doing that, yet having that relationship and partnership with the Bat family still works for him as well. So I could be on board with that. There's... My preference is Bruce Wayne as Batman, though, and Dick Grayson as Nightwing. Tim and Damian are a bit of wild cards for me right now. I'm not quite sure who I want to see as Robin. I don't know that it's the role of Robin. I don't feel like Tim is Red Robin because he's outgrown the role of Robin. He's Red Robin because he's protecting the role of Robin.
True.
So I would not see it a step backwards for him. I'm not saying you would either. I'm not speaking. I do not see him going back into the role of Robin as being a step backwards. I think he has defined that role. So I could see him defining Red Robin in a similar way. So I'm pretty open-minded on what that looks like afterwards. The wild card to me is, what is Damian going to be like at the end of this?
Now, let me ask you all a question, throw this out there. What if when Bruce comes back, we have a switch-up where Damian becomes Red Robin and Tim goes back to being Robin?
I'd have to see why.
Yeah. Damian needs Robin because he needs boundaries. He needs to be... because Damian can go to the dark side and, the right circumstances, and he could just go back to, that League of Assassin type of personality. But Tim, we've already seen Tim he can actually be on his own and still abide by the code, you know, and still be his own person. But Damian could not. If he did become Red Robin, it would be against his father's wishes, because I just don't see them, Bruce Wayne, letting that kid, after everything they went through with Jason, I don't see him letting that kid out of the sight.
He's not going to release the reins on that one, because
no.
Yeah, you know, that's a psychopath. You know, just wait. That's a problem waiting to happen.
Darrell, I want to make sure, as we're wrapping up here, that we give a shout out to your podcast. You've got 3 of them right now. You got DaFixer's Hideout.
Yeah, we got DaFixer's Hideout, where you can, we have a website. Just go to DaFixer.com. You can listen to the episodes on there or get it from iTunes under DaFixer's Hideout. And on that one, we're doing like the focus shows. So we do movies. We still do comics, TV, you know, fanboy type of stuff in that genre. But we will focus on something like we had a recent what the F moments, which were what are the major cliffhanger moments that you know from either TV or comics, and how did that affect you? And then Comic Book Roadshow, we basically we talk about comics and movies. We're gonna talk about a lot of what's going on with DC News lately, with the Batman and the multiverse stories that Morrison and Johns and them are going to do. So we're going to talk about...
You're talking about the multiversity?
Yeah, multiversity. We're going to go through a whole bunch of the news that's been coming out with DC, because they have been coming out with a lot of comic news in the last week. So we're going to talk about that. And on my show, No Apologies, more than likely, I'm going to focus on the Star Trek novel that I'm reading right now. So it's A Destiny is the name of the book. So that'll be my focus probably for a couple of episodes. So I finish those books.
The premise of No Apologies is interesting to me, because when I look at all 3 of the podcasts you're involved with, it's kind of a nice, well-rounded battery of podcasts. No Apologies is kind of your chance for anything that I'm not doing on the other podcasts that I really want to be able to. It gives you a lot of freedom to hit on some topics that you can't hit on the other podcasts.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Like, we can get a little bit into Star Trek when we talk about it on DaFixer Hideout, but when I really, I can go on No Apologies and I can really get into the story about the books, and because it's just not enough time when you're trying to do a podcast.
One of the things that I've always enjoyed about the New York Comic Con and the podcast arena has been the fact that we've got an opportunity we all talked via forums and stuff like that. We got a chance to really, get to meet some of the other podcasters, and also it's fun at our booth to be able to see other guys at work and just the energy that's coming off you guys. We've been lucky. I think almost every time we've been there, if we're not across from each other, we're pretty darn close, which to me is great, because that's where I know you guys in person as well as on the podcasts. And I'm glad that I don't know why it's taken us so long to do this, but I'm glad we finally had the opportunity to do this, because and I will tell all of our listeners, obviously it speaks for itself if you just heard this episode, why you should be checking out Darrell's work and what he's doing. This was a lot of fun, and I want to thank you, Darrell, for your friendship and support of our show, and I want to encourage our listeners to please, if you haven't been checking out their podcasts, please do so, because great people, great podcasts, and this just was a blast. Yeah, I literally, it's like 10:05 here right now, and I got to go teach tomorrow. And I'm like sitting here saying to myself, if I wasn't teaching tomorrow, this would easily be like a 1:00 in the morning ending. We'd get 2 shows out of this.
I definitely want both of y'all to be. It's an invitation to both of you to be on Comic Book Roadshow, because we definitely want to have you on to kind of do. I think we want to kind of do the. That little month where they're not having we're not having Blackest Night come out, and everybody's coming back to do like comics that were already out, like Starman and all of that. We want to kind of have after that's over, a couple of months down the line, we'll have a show on those comics. Like, how did you like those? How did you like the Secret Six going in and being Suicide Squad and all that kind of stuff? So I want to put something like that together that we could do.
Yeah, especially if we're going to talk about that Suicide Squad issue, because that's actually the first part of that 3-part Secret Six story. Yeah. So I'm always into Talk Secret Six. Yeah, no, I'd love to do that. It's honestly, it's one of the things when we all get together as podcasters. I wish we had, if we all could do this and make a living at it, all we'd ever do is talk comics.
Yeah.
All the time. Because honestly, there's so many times where I would love to do more shows with other podcasters and things like that. Because this was a blast today. Interesting dynamic, something different for all of us. I eat this kind of stuff up. Plus, I love hearing other people's perspective on the characters that I love. It's one of the reasons why you and I are still doing this. I love seeing the way you think. No, I do. I'm being tongue-in-cheek when I'm saying it right now, but I'm being very genuine. That's one of the reasons why you and I are still doing this, is because I enjoy chatting with you about it because you view things differently than I do. These are conversations that we've all always wanted to have, and this is fun. Yeah. So, Darrell, I want to thank you again for joining us, especially for giving us so much of your time, and this was just really a lot of fun.
I had a good time. Thanks for having me on the show. I've always been a fan of the show, when I first found out about you guys, and this is just something that I'm just, glad that I could be a part of it.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. Here, ready to move out.
Jim, our next episode, Preacher. We're wrapping up Preacher, and it's going to be, actually, it looks like it's going to be our last episode of 2009. And Jim, that will mean officially in 2009, we had 4 or more episodes every month.
Woohoo!
Which I was excited. That was one of my goals this year, is to make sure that we got 4 or more episodes out every month in the middle of life's nonsense and craziness that we both have been dealing with. We still managed to, even with, a couple days off here or there or something like that, because, we couldn't record, we still managed to get 4 out a month. I don't know how we did it. And we'll be rambling on to 2010 with Blackest Night. And there's a lot to talk about Blackest Night. We're going to talk about the 2 most recent issues, a lot of the crossovers and things like that. So it looks like it's going to be our first episode right in the beginning of January to kick off the year. So very excited to talk Blackest Night again as well. Jim, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. We just told you this episode why you should be reading Red Robin. Red Robin number 9 comes out, regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. That blurb, you read it too, I'm sure.
Yes.
Very spoiler-filled. For the sake of people that don't want to know where things are going, I'm not telling you anything on that one other than thank you, DCBService.com, especially with 2 Batman issues coming out as well. I love the discounts. Getting that, 40% off and being able to have all those discounts is just really important to me. So thank you very much, DCBService.com. I want to talk about our in-stock trades Rage of the Month for January, JLA Avengers. The once-in-a-lifetime crossover that brought 2 teams together and rocked the comics world is at last available in trade paperback. Own the entire 4-issue co-publishing event between DC and Marvel, as written by Kurt Busiek, with stunning art by George Perez. This collection also features an introduction by the original Adventures writer-editor Stan Lee and Justice League of America editor Julius Schwartz. That's 208 pages, Jim, $19.99 regularly, 47% off, only $10.59. I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support our show. I want to remind everyone about the Hero Initiative. That's heroinitiative.org, and there's a handy-dandy link on the site. It's a great chance for us to help out yesterday's creator, who are in need of our support today. And comicsforesight.com. I want to remind everyone we're still trying to help out John Ostrander. Anything that they get that's over their intended amount is all going to the Hero Initiative. So this is a great way to help out John Ostrander directly. And if you're as excited about Secret Six Suicide Squad as I am, especially after that most recent Secret Six issue with him with Deadshot,
God, yeah.
This is a great chance to support this creator. Anybody who's reading Star Wars, he's done some wonderful Star Wars comics that I've adored. this is a great creator to help out, and his history with the DC Universe, his Spectre run. I mean, we could just go on and on. You know, Suicide Squad is obviously something he's always connected with as well. He's just a great creator, and he's Martian Manhunter. He definitely needs our support, and it's a great chance for us to. You can donate, you can participate in the auctions. There's some great options as far as how to participate in this holiday season. You know, time of giving for people, whatever your religion or background is or what you support. It's a great chance to kind of help somebody else out who needs it. So please consider doing that and donating to it. I donated to it. I participated in an auction. I'm probably going to do more. I just think it's really kind of cool. I like this community aspect of comics, so I'm asking everyone to consider participating in the whole thing. I want to remind everyone about the Raging Oscars 2009. December 31st is the cutoff date if you want to have any commentary of your own put on the show for participation. Jim and I are following traditional categories. It's just what we're doing that's a little bit different is that we're changing up some of the categories where we don't have a lot of personal conviction to categories where we do. We want to make sure there's so many great things going on in comics right now that we feel that there's just a ton to talk about that we're both highly interested in honoring from 2009 and hopes and wishes for 2010. So it is going to be a traditional awards show, except that we're trying to make sure that every category that Jim and I present have personal conviction, personal passion behind them. So we are both have the freedom to adjust our category selection to fit that kind of theme. A lot of times there's books and things on the show that we don't get to that you're very passionate about. Things that you're like, geez, guys, I wish you'd talked about this more. Here's a trend in 2009 that I didn't hear you guys talking a lot about that I want to get out there. Whatever that is, if you got your own list that you want to make sure that is thrown out in the show just to get our thoughts on your list, please feel free to send those in at senseiofwhatnot@gmail.com, or you can call our Skype voicemail line at 1-440-388-4434. That's 1-440-388-4434, or drnorge on Skype. And we would love to have your commentary and participation in that episode, because it'd be fun to, not just to read off your lists or share your lists and thoughts, but also our own feelings on them. So please make sure if you're going to send in that list, tell us why. It's always fun to hear why certain things wound up in certain places, whether it's just one or two comments or you've got a whole list that you'd like to share on the show. So any of that commentary is welcome. Once again, the cutoff date is December 31st. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to the Bat Radia Podcast with a quick promo.
Are you getting enough Batmen in your life? Studies have shown that people who enjoy a regular diet of pop culture, supplemented by regular doses of the Dark Knight, lead happier, healthier lives. The Bat Radia is proud to bring you all the strengthening Cape Crusader you need to improve your stamina and performance in concentrated twice-a-month doses. This was darn good for a nearly 40-year-old Batman comic.
Yeah. I mean, it's no Bob Kane, but...
Thank goodness.
And we get the return of the misogynistic Batman, as he thinks to himself, a gal lab director, it figures. Put a woman in charge of anything, and she's of course going to use it for blackmail.
I think you read that wrong. Don't bury your head in the sand. There are freaks out there.
Good. I like to work to music. Sexy disco hot.
The Bat Radia goes down easily and won't leave a bitter aftertaste or chalky residue in your mouth. You can find it at www.batradia.com or find retailers everywhere. That's BATRADIA.com. Ask for it by name.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.